Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the March 2nd, 2021 meeting of the San Luis Coastal Unified School District Board of Trustees. At this time, we'd like to ask those in attendance to please keep your videos off and audio muted unless you're presenting information or speaking in public comment. We're offering translation services for our Spanish-speaking attendees. To access translation, please click on the globe at the bottom of your screen and then the language. At this time, we'd like to ask if anyone who needs translation to please click on the participants icon at the bottom of your screen and raise your hand.
Buenas noches y bienvenidos a esta junta del Consejo Educativo del día 2 de marzo. Les pedimos que por favor mantengan su micrófono y también su cámara apagada. Esta transmisión va a estar siendo interpretada al español. Si necesitan los servicios, por favor, en la parte inferior de la pantalla van a ver un globo. Después de que yo termine de hablar, lo pueden hacer clic y en ese seleccionar el idioma español. Gracias.
Okay, thank you very much. The board did meet in closed session. We discussed anticipated litigation, significant exposure to potential litigation, as well as personnel issues, reviewing and possible action on employment, dismissal, or discipline of district employees. I'll turn to the board now and ask if there's a consensus on the order of business. Is everybody good with that? Okay, very good. Let's move on to item number 5.03, approval of minutes of February 11th, 2021. I see Mrs. Roger. Are you making a motion? So we have a motion by Mrs. Roger and a second by Mr. Buckman. Hold on just a second, please. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, I'll ask the board for a vote. Marilyn?
Yes.
Mr. Buckman? Yes. Ms. Dobler-Drew?
Yes.
Dr. Eisendrath Rogers?
Yes.
Ms. Frame? Ms. Sheffer?
Yes.
And I'm a yes. Motion passes 7-0. Let's move on to our student representatives to the board. I'm not sure if Rosalie is here, but we do have Bautista Guerrero from San Luis Obispo High School with us this evening. So we'll go with him, and then Rosalie, if you're here, we'll come to you next. Bautista, welcome.
Having me. Yeah, my name is Bautista Guerrero, and I'm the student rep for San Luis Obispo High School tonight. So just a few announcements from the high school. Obviously, we officially reached red tier today, so that's very exciting to know that we're going to be going back to school on the 15th. People are very excited about that, so that's some good news to hear today. So yeah, additionally, we have our sports back on campus, so that's something that our students are also very excited about. Getting out and active on the field and in the pool is very nice. It's nice to see everyone on campus. It feels like a school now more than just an empty campus with buildings. So that's very nice. This upcoming Friday on March 12th, we are hosting a welcome back to school orientation in which we will be giving tours to new students who have never been on our campus before and just showing them around a little before the first day of school. Obviously, it'll be socially distanced and everyone will be wearing masks, and the majority of the tour will take place outside. And lastly, I just want to give a shout out to our mock trial team for winning first in the county. Congrats and good job on your hard work and dedication. Yeah.
Yeah, and Mr. Unger, I just want to give a shout out to Bautista. He's served on our Common Ground Advisory Task Force for the last 2 years since he moved here. And he is an incredible contributor to that high-powered group of individuals. And he just, as you heard tonight, very articulate and thoughtful. And his contribution to that group has benefited our district over the last 2 years. And I just want to give you my thanks.
Great. Thank you.
For sure. I appreciate it.
Rosalie, are you here? Or is there a representative from Morro Bay High School? I'm not seeing anybody. Okay. Well, Bautista, so you can choose to stay if you like, of course. We welcome your comments and your participation in the meeting. But of course, we also understand that a lot of times you've got work you need to do that you'd rather go home. So we welcome you. We welcome you to stay, but we also understand if you'd like to leave. So thank you. Yeah. Okay. Well, thank you very much. Okay. Got it. Okay. There we go. Let's make that. Is that better, Bob? Perfect. Yeah. All right. Let's move on to item number 6.02, CL Smith program highlights. And is that going to be Dr. Prater or is that going to be you, Mr. Mayfield?
Yeah, I get the pleasure of introducing the highlights when I'm paying attention and I can do it. So, but tonight CL Smith has been rocking it during the past few months of bringing students back on campus. And we have Principal Aaron Black here to introduce his team and share with us some highlights from CL Smith. Aaron, you there?
Yes, I'm here. I'm unable to undo my video here. There we go. Excellent. Thank you. All right. Good evening. Thank you so much for having us. I think it was actually almost to the date, Dr. Prater, that we were meeting last time, and didn't know if we could shake hands or elbow bump or what at that moment, but it's been a long year. Thank you all for having us. We're really excited to share some of our highlights that we have been focusing on here at CL Smith. A lot of things we've been proud of. I'm very proud of our staff as overall whole for taking a lead in a number of things, being prepared for our students last spring, jumping online, turning it around in a quick amount of time, and offering the best quality education we possibly come up with in that quick time. So very proud of our staff as a whole. But I think our biggest highlight that we're going to share tonight, put together by our librarian, Danielle Bagnell. She did an amazing job, and I appreciate all the help she's done. Just a quick video on from our parents, some staff, and some students on how we focused on keeping our community together at CL Smith. That March 13th, Friday, still sticks in my mind. I see it vividly. We had an emergency staff meeting after school that day to announce what was happening. And I shared that day, my biggest fear was losing families. And we have to take care of our own, and we got to stay connected. So that's our biggest highlights. We've had a number of opportunities. Our parent group, our PTA, has taken on the challenge. They looked at not putting pressure on families to raise fundraising this year. We did not do any. We focused everything on bringing our families together and staying strong as a strong community. So I have a quick video here for you, so please enjoy, and I'll be more than happy to answer any questions. Again, a highlight of ours was being a pilot school for reopening, and definitely will answer any questions of those. But really, we wanted to focus on ourselves and taking care of each other.
There are 3 reasons that we have been able to maintain our community engagement like we have. We have a supportive staff, a very supportive PTA, and a supportive principal, Aaron Black. Our staff is constantly checking in on students. They're making sure that our students show up. They help families connect with resources, especially during this time in the pandemic.
To see what this faculty brought together to put these children back online and to get them stimulated and engaged again, it brings me to tears. I was blown away, and I'm so very grateful.
Our PTA has been so active. They held 2 bingo nights that were huge hits and just got everyone excited to see each other, even though it was on Zoom. They've put together goodie bags to send home, like Mardi Gras masks.
En la casa siempre la escuela estuvo conectada con los niños, con los padres, haciendo fiestas para que ellos no pensaran en eso, ¿verdad? Un poco en lo de la enfermedad, eso del virus y pues sí, hubo fiestas y nos divertimos, haciendo de todo, que sea en casa, siempre estuvo bien todo.
Our principal, Mr. Black, has continued on with superstar assemblies. He makes a point to celebrate each individual child at our school. He's able to, take those superstar awards and hand deliver them to students. It's been incredible.
For the first time in forever, we're getting what we're dreaming of. Be the teacher you always want to be.
Nosotros como papás nos sentimos muy contentos. Es algo que no tenemos como palabras para decirlo, porque mi niño cuando nos llegó el email de la noticia que ya volvían a la escuela estaba tan feliz que no pudo como dormir esa noche, se movía porque estaba tan contento. Y nosotros como papás también, la escuela siempre estuvo preparada con cosas y nuevas para que los niños volvieran con seguridad a la escuela. Y por esa parte nosotros estamos muy felices porque sabemos que nuestros niños están muy bien cuidados.
The first day we were able to come back to class, it was surrealistic. There was joy in her step, there was happiness. She was seeing her teachers, she was seeing her friends, and life was good again.
Things that I liked when we came back from school is that I can pay attention more. I can see all the stuff that we have done, the teachers, the students.
Welcome to this year's Current Talent Show.
We have been doing, anything we can to keep students engaged, and I am really proud to work at CL Smith.
That's what CL Smith has brought to us. It is a sense of family. It's life-changing.
For the first time in forever, no screens in my way.
Together we shine. Juntos brillamos.
All right. Thank you for taking some time to watch. Thank you, Danielle Bagnell, for putting that together in such a short turnaround. So appreciate it.
Thank you very much. Any questions or comments from board members? Mrs. Sheffer.
Well, just as a proud CL Smith supporter, since my kids are graduates, I just want to say that having visited the school a couple of times during the shutdown, that the work your teachers are doing, the enthusiasm, and just seeing how you've been making it work, Erin, is just been incredible. And I don't know what you've got going over there, that everyone is so wanting to teach from the classroom even before and now coming back, but it looks great. The setup, the classroom setups look great. And I think, you know, you've got a lot of Broadway stars over there. I don't know what's going to happen with your staff, but they really love putting these videos together, and we love seeing them. So it's great. Thank you so much. And thanks to the whole staff. I don't know how many of them are here tonight, but please extend my best to them. It's been great.
Yeah, they're definitely superstars.
Yeah.
Ms. Dobler-Drew.
I really enjoyed seeing the video and was so inspired by it, and to see the elevation of the feelings there of just looking forward to being back at school without any vestige of the fear. You know, it was just a wonderful, bold statement, and I look forward to touring your school soon, which I haven't done before.
Absolutely. You're welcome anytime.
Thank you.
So, Mr. Black, one of the things that was really nice to see was the video that we've heard about. I believe it was from Frozen. Can you talk to us a little bit about that? And can you also tell us where people can find that video? Because it really is a wonderful testament to the work that you all are doing there.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun. Our teachers, Kimberly Hancock, who is in our special day class, and Danielle Bagnell, our librarian, and the paraeducators that work in the SEC class, they came to me and asked, "Hey, can we do this?" And they wrote their own lyrics and everything. I'm like, "Yeah, go for it, have fun," you know. So after school each day, they were filming throughout for a while. And that was actually Danielle's voice. She was actually singing that, which blew my mind when I found that out. So it was fun. They had a lot of fun. I just showed up when they told me to. I did what they told me to. But they need to take all the credit. I was actually sitting on it for a few weeks before I pushed it out, because you know, I didn't want to give false hopes for anything. But once that decision was made, you know, let's go. But yeah, they had a lot of fun. You can find it on YouTube. It's on, I find it by searching Kimberly Hancock, and then she has her own channel there with some videos, and you can find it there. But definitely inspirational. Yeah, definitely inspirational.
Mr. Black, can you hear me?
Yes.
I too had a wonderful time being at your school site. The one thing that I wanted to ask you is, since you have been back, or even before, because you experienced, like everybody else, being shut down. So since you've been back, kind of what have you noticed between your students and teachers, and, you know, kind of those general kind of themes that have kind of popped out at you, apart from this kind of a sideline business of being video producers and show musicals and
Yeah. You know, I think what my phrase has been all year is things are changing so rapidly, right? So every day is a different day, and staff just been, you know, knocking the curveballs out of the park, because they're getting curveballs left and right here. And you know, last spring, I seriously thought it was going to be like 2 weeks. I was like, yeah, we'll be out for a couple weeks, guys. We're ready for virtual. And then it went for a month, and then it kept going. And it was disheartening at times. It was difficult, as we all have experienced and we've all gone through. And, you know, my staff just came back challenged and ready to go. And families, you know, stepped up to the challenge, and then it starts to fade, right? People just kind of get past that point and they get exhausted. And, you know, you get calls from families, and you get calls about how behavior at home is changing with their students or their child. And it's worrisome. The kids were having a lot of emotional distress, and families didn't know what to do, and they were reaching out to the school. And we at that time we couldn't go see them. We didn't know it was difficult. So one of the biggest trends I've seen with the little ones that have come back for a few months now is I've heard from many parents how it's just completely 180'd the students' outlook, their behavior at home. They're back on a schedule. They're feeling more normal. It's a positive trend. And I would also share the same for the staff. After that first week of exhaustion, because they were tired after that first week, they felt whole again and full-hearted, and they were doing what they love to do, and that's teach kids and doing it how they want to do it. So those are some of the trends that I've seen. The more staff are on campus, the more they're seeing the safety protocols put in place, the more confident they are, the more safe they feel. Same with parents. We've seen a large jump with our first grade reading levels from when they entered in at the beginning of the year. Of course, it was assessments over online, but since they've been back in person just for about 8 weeks now, about 2 months, they're just walking up the ladder right now. They're just taking off, which is fantastic. And they're focused. There is absolutely zero behavior issues. They want to be in class. And I was joking with my second grade parents the other night before they came back and I said, hey, don't get upset when your kid, you try to say goodbye on that first day and they just run through the gate, because they are super excited. So it's a positive thing, and it's going to be great. And families are going to feel it next Monday or Thursday for some families, and teachers are going to feel it. So it's good.
Thanks a lot for sharing, and your kudos to your staff for just being so energetic and I guess creative. So thank you.
Thank you.
Great. Thank you very much. And just an acknowledgement to not only your staff, but to all the teachers and all the educators in our district, the paraeducators, bus drivers, the school secretaries, everybody. I think we just need to recognize how hard everybody's been working and how everybody has really been putting their hearts into things. And thanks to all the staff. And again, we really appreciate the work that you all are doing at C.L. Smith.
All right, thank you.
Let's move on to item number 7.01, which is correspondence. The board did receive 2 pieces of correspondence, one from John Broyles regarding sports, and the other from Daniel Clancy, a letter in support of school reopening. And with that, we'll move to public comment. So the first thing I'm going to do is to read a statement regarding public comment, and then we'll move forward with public comment. So at this point in the agenda, the board welcomes comments on matters of district interest. The board will listen but cannot engage in discussion or take action on items not listed on the agenda. Generally, this section of the agenda is for individuals or a representative of a group to address the board on issues not listed on the agenda. Speakers who wish to discuss items on the agenda are requested to wait until that item comes before the board. However, comments may be given on agenda items at this time if it isn't possible for a speaker to stay until the agenda item is heard by the board. If you submit written comments on a topic, you will not also be allowed to speak on that topic. Comments or correspondence submitted anonymously will not be accepted. You can contact us via the public comment request form prior to the meeting or while the meeting is in session, and I believe that is on our website. If you wish to speak at the meeting, please click on the participants icon at the bottom of your screen and select Raise Your Hand. When your name is called, you may restart your video if you wish and unmute your audio. If you need assistance with your video, please let us know and we'll attempt to fix it. If you have a problem with your audio, please click on the thumbs down icon and we'll attempt to assist you. All public comments will be limited to 3 minutes, a limit of approximately 450 words in written comment. Any portion of your comment extending past the 450 word limit may not be read aloud due to time restrictions. All written comments that are not read into the record will be made part of the meeting minutes, provided that such comments are received prior to the end of the meeting. Please be aware that written public comments, including your name, may become public information. Also, just a reminder that there is no ceding of your time. In other words, you may not give your 3 minutes, for example, to someone else to extend their time to 6 minutes. First thing we'll do is we are meeting in person. And so I'd like to find out if there's anyone from the public who is attending the meeting who would like to address the board. And I'm seeing no one. So we'll move then to the written public comments that we've received. Dr. Eisendrath Rogers will read those public comments, and then I'll go to the public comments from people who'd like to make them via a video that we're doing right now.
This is from Fran Coy. Please reopen the schools for the students. I am grandmother to 2 elementary and 1 LOMS student, and they need to have schools open for learning. It has been very hard for children to sit in front of a computer screen to try and learn. The teachers should be applauded for their hard work, but these children need face-to-face learning. They need to gain social skills along with math and science. They need class personal interaction. It is sad and depressing to see how these kids are unhappy and distracted with Zoom school. Please, please reopen the schools. All the children need the schools to reopen. We want the best for our kids, and opening schools is the best thing to do. Thank you. And the next item is titled Executive Summary of Proposed New
For 9.0, for 9.05, so we can wait on that.
Okay.
I'll wait. I don't see any other written comments. Now we'll turn to comments from people who would like to address the board via our virtual platform. And I believe I see one person's name right now, Chris Rodebush. So Chris, if you're ready, we're ready for you. And are you there?
Yes, I am. Good evening.
Okay, Chris, hold on. Let me start my timer. Your time starts now.
Great. So hello from the We Are the Care Initiative. My name is Chris Rodebush. Every year during the month of March, we celebrate National Women's History Month to honor the contributions women have made to society throughout time and the strides that have been made towards gender equity. Unfortunately, the child care crisis and the COVID-19 pandemic have undone much of the progress made over the years in what is now being called a female recession. For the first time since the 1970s, there has been a decline in women's presence in the labor force. Even a 5% drop threatens to undo 25 years of progress. This recession is due to income inequality that persists to this day between men and women, and the strains the pandemic has placed on families. Men are still more typically the breadwinners. When a choice needs to be made of who will sacrifice their career to either stay home with children due to lack of childcare or work from home, mothers are more likely to step out of their jobs to support their families' current needs. Attempting to work from home while trying to care for young children or older children who are distance learning is nearly impossible. The resulting career loss can be devastating. Even before 2020, the childcare crisis was already impacting working mothers due to limited access to quality and affordable care. But COVID has now forced at least 2,500 licensed centers to permanently shut their doors in California alone, creating an even more dire situation. Not having access to childcare has put mental and emotional strain on these mothers who must now try to save their careers, care for their children, and continue to support their family and household. While it seems that women leaving the workforce in droves would only affect those who are part of that fallout, the ripple effect will be seen in our economy and will have a lasting negative effect on our society. This is why we need to continue to support childcare in our community and why we need to value the contributions women make to the workforce. We Are the Care asks that this school board in its decisions keep in mind the childcare sector and gender equity. In doing so, you can help alleviate the women's recession and support the hardworking women in our community. For ways to get involved in We Are the Care, please contact First Five San Luis Obispo County or go to www.first5slow.org. Thank you so much for your time, and we will be back next month for the Month of the Child and with information about the hashtag Kids Are Essential campaign. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Chris. Is there anyone else who would like to address the board at this time? I'm not seeing anyone. So we'll move on to item numbers 8.01, business and budget update. Mr. Pinkerton?
Yeah, so it's been a busy few weeks as we prepare for students to re-enter the classrooms across our district. And so Chris Bonin, the Director of Facilities, Grounds, and Maintenance, Transportation, has been walking with me throughout all the sites, just ensuring that our custodians are preparing rooms, making sure that things are set up, meeting with principals and secretaries and teachers, and just doing whatever we can to kind of calm people's ease and help them as they plan for kids to return this week. So we'll actually be doing that tomorrow and Wednesday as well. In particular, the K2 classrooms, as we know that those students will be returning to school on Thursday. Also working with our child care agency. So for Chris's sake, that has been, definitely a board priority this year. One of our focus areas, right, to help families, especially with this AM/PM cohort issue. We realize how hard that is, right, along with the virtual learning and everything that we've kind of faced this year and that parents are facing with their kids as well as our staff. So, I can't echo how lucky we are to have just great childcare providers. So the city of San Luis Obispo, city of Morro Bay, the YMCA have stepped up now that kids are returning. So we have childcare at all of our sites, including Teach. That's something that is different. We're actually a pod leader is going to help at Teach with some students there that need some extra time in terms of being on campus. Now there is throughout the district a few schools that have some waiting lists. So there are some parents that still need childcare and so what I would like to tell parents that are listening today, we are working on that, working with those agencies. It's less about the room availability. It's more about them trying to find staff. So and being able to have enough staff there, to be able to have the students on campus. So they face the same rules in terms of cohorts and the number of kids that they can have in class. And so my hope is that today we have some very welcome news that I'm sure Kim will share with you moving into the red tier. So I'm hoping that will allow them to bring some more students into those cohorts so that we can, again, increase the numbers. The other thing that we're working on now too is I've asked the principals to look at those waitlist kids and can any of those students be tied into our pod groups. So we still have a lot of pods on campus, which are basically meant to keep the kids there all day. So if there's ways that the district can supplement those child care providers, we're going to do everything we can to try to get everyone a spot, at somewhere in our district over the next, week or so as we begin to have students come back. Along that same front, we are beginning to open up our field use to youth sports groups throughout the community. So I've been in contact with the YSA and several groups throughout the county, basically, who want to use our field. So Kelly Lee over in BG&T has reached out to our normal, people that use our field. So she's going to work on some priority listing and getting that information out so that we can return to that. Of course, those groups will all have to abide by the public health guidance in order to be able to use our facilities long term. So at the present time, that is only for outside field use. The public health does not allow inside facility use at this time, even for our own students, even for our own sports, even for our own programs. So, but as it opens up, hopefully things get better. That's something that we can do as well. And then lastly, Mr. Bonin again with Mr. Rodriguez, our custodial supervisor, they've been around to all the sites and meeting individually with custodians to make sure that they understand the new HVAC systems and repairs and how they work. So that's very important, right, for teachers coming back to know to keep your fan on and with the heater works and to make sure that those HVAC systems are working when they're in their classroom. So it really is important that the custodians know those controls backwards and forwards so they can go in and check if the teacher has a question, because we want to make people feel really safe upon their return to our campuses. So that's something that, again, working with each of the custodians to make sure that they understand how to use those controls, throughout all of our campuses. So those are kind of the main things happening right now. Again, we're going to spend a lot of time over the next few days and into next week, really walking all the classrooms, making sure that things are set for our students to return safely.
I have to give a shout out to Mr. Pinkerton. I've watched him work with the cities of Morro Bay and San Luis Obispo, as well as the YMCA, to try and advocate and really pull together all the facility issues and needs, along with our parent needs, and working with the site administrators. And Mr. Pinkerton, this would not have happened without his work. So very skilled job. Thank you.
Great. Questions from the board, Mr. Buckman?
Yeah, and I know Ryan's got a great staff, and I just wanted, Chris Bonin's in the back here, and I know that he's just been amazing. So I just thought I'd give a little shout out to Chris.
Thank you. Any other board members? Okay, let's move on to 8.02 educational services. Oh, I'm sorry, Mrs. Frame. I
did want to ask, and just when you made the comment about the HVAC system and how the custodians are all, is there signage on that would, like a little kind of laminated that makes sure that teachers, I'm just thinking in terms of like if subs were, teachers, if there was a sub that needed to be, or a custodian sub, is there some little signage we could put on there?
We can, so we can let them know. It's that balance point. Some districts lock the whole thing down. They don't allow teachers to have any input or to do anything. So, we're going to see how this goes, but they're normally set. They shouldn't have to even touch them, right? In terms of, when the heater comes on, temperature control, those types of things. But the biggest thing in particular now is the fans. So those fans need to stay on throughout the day, even if the heater's not on, or those types of things. And they can be loud, they can be noisy. So it's just one of those where in the past a lot of times teachers would just turn them off because they didn't want to deal. Well, now it's really important that they keep them on. So it's a good point. I'll talk as we walk tomorrow. We'll look at that, and there may be some signage or something that we could put on those just to remind people to please leave them on. And if they have any questions, again, we want them to go to the custodian, go to your site leadership to find out.
Thank you.
Okay, now, thank you. I'm sorry. Let's move on to 8.02 educational services and COVID-19 update. Mrs. McGrath.
Yeah, you bet. I just want to begin too by saying a thanks to instantly. So thanks so much for all that you're doing, Mr. Roper. I see you on there. Thanks a lot. So lots of updates here. So yeah, great news that our county did get our adjusted case rate all the way down to 6.8. So that's excellent, which does put us in the red tier. We needed 2 consecutive weeks of that. So so glad that our county did accomplish that. That does begin to open up some additional things. One of that secondary schools will be able to open. We also, just another little piece of good news, is didn't have any on-site positive cases over this last reporting period for us. So that is also great news. Part of what I think we have to remember is that mitigation strategies work. So I'll be diligent about them so that we can help keep each other safe and healthy. Also, just to let you know, we had approval of our COVID safety. That was submitted to public health and to the state. Big thanks to Holly Warwick, Resolute Associates that help us out tremendously with that. So thank you for that. We've conducted quite a few safety mitigation talks, forums, trainings, etc. So conducted a full elementary and secondary one on Wednesday, full staff one as well. Also answered submitted questions that were submitted or on a Google form that were submitted there if people didn't want to answer the, or ask questions out loud. So we sent the answers to all those questions out. We also held a question and answer session on Friday and just had kind of an open time. Interestingly enough, of course, there were updates between that Wednesday and Friday, so we gave a few more updates. and then answered a lot of just free flowing questions from people that wanted further clarifications for things. So kind of one of the things that I was asked to clarify is just that difference of elementary opening versus secondary school sites opening. So there was new information, you'll remember from me telling you last time about elementary open when we're in the purple tier, but they needed to be under 25 of the adjusted case rate per 100,000 within our county. Different for secondary. So of course, if you picture elementary, it is, you know, by nature of elementary, a stable group, right? Where secondary students are changing class to class. So it's understandable why there were more restrictions and that schools had to wait to be in the red tier in order to open a secondary school. So even since we reported last, they did make a change that once you're in the red tier, you could open quickly. They had a 5-day wait period that I told you about previously, and they did remove that. For us, we're going to go ahead and stick with our March 15th opening date. As you know, a lot of union conversations, board approval, and a lot of things go into making that happen. So we are sticking with our opening dates of the 4th and the 8th here for our elementary kids and March 15th for our secondary students. They did kind of also add a 3-week opening window so that you're able to open within that time period. And then if you move back into purple during that time, you're able to still continue with your opening plans. So we look in good shape to begin secondary schools on March 15th. Another question was kind of changes. So I'll just remind you of a few of the changes that have come about. As you know, flexibility has been the name of the game. We have had to keep responding and, you know, keep up to date on this changing information. As I think as they learn more and more about the virus, then they guide us with the science that matches what they're learning about the virus. So one of the things is the increased need for hand hygiene, but some decreased need for the extensive surface cleaning protocols that we originally heard about when we started this. Wow, it was like a year ago, right? It's really about washing your hands, using hand sanitizer if that's not available, and wiping down surfaces some, but even that being vulnerable, the virus being vulnerable to soap and water. There was also a change to health checks. So as you know, monitor the of it on a daily basis. What we do need to be really tight about is that people, adults and students, should not be on campus with symptoms. Let's see, athletic competition. So we've heard a little bit about that from the students. It's so great to hear them behind us, even there was a lot of changes when it comes to competitions for athletics. A lot of things opened up. You're even going to see football competing. You're going to see water polo competing, a lot of the sports. For Morro Bay, they have about we're hoping that we'll keep moving in the right direction and be able to do that as well. At Slow High, they have about 15 competing and over 400 students involved. So great to see those restrictions published from Public Health, which allows some of those opportunities. Another question I was asked to address is kind of that difference between stable cohorts and stable groups. It was kind of a confusing thing that was brought up. So you'll remember that stable cohorts were once explained as kind of that grouping that we were required to do, which had to have a maximum of 16 individuals. Those guidelines then changed to looking for a stable group. So for example, in secondary, some people say, how would a secondary school be allowed to open when you have students moving class to class, right? And you're right, it's not a stable cohort. But what you have to do at a secondary school is implement things that are reducing the risk. So for example, the fact that we families who would like in-person versus virtual and only have those in-person students there has reduced that number dramatically of the students that are there. Another strategy that we're using is only going to 3 classes in the day. So that also reduces it dramatically, right? So it's like you've cut it around in half and then you cut it around in half again. So two of the ways that we made a big difference of what they kind of call thinning the herd, right? You're reducing that number that kids are around. You think about the structure of a secondary school is that based because of credentials, right? Because of student selection of courses, you have to move class to class, right? And those groups don't stay stable each time you're moving. So when you reduce the number of students and then you reduce the number of classes that are attending per day, we've made major mitigation steps there. Just transportation, it is frustrating for a lot of people. We totally understand. There are still spacing requirements. We don't see any changes to that. Those requirements have stayed consistent. So, you know, we'll do all that we can. And I know that Mr. Pinkerton and the transportation department will stay on top of that. But requirements really give us limited transportation opportunities. Kind of just the last couple topics would be vaccinations. So vaccinations, I know you've probably heard from Governor Newsom that 10% were allocated of vaccinations to be designated for educators. And that's great news. We thought we were going to have 40 slots last week, and then that was increased to 89. So that was fabulous. Ms. Newland and HR has done a great job of really looking at being really communicative. People get an immediate email with a code that says, here's where you go, take this code with you, and here's how you have access to the vaccination. So we will continue distributing those codes and giving people opportunities. We're really starting with those that were closest to kids in person, and we're rocking the pond, working our way out so that people like us that are a little bit further away, would happen later, and those that of course are virtual for the whole year would happen much. We've started, we have people that have received the first one, and of course our eye on that. School sites have also been offering parent orientation sessions. So just to let you know, some of those have already occurred. So keep your eyes open for that, as school sites can then get more specific about what the information looks like at their specific site. So I think that's all for today. Happy to answer any questions. Marilyn.
Do you have your hand up?
I do have my hand up. A couple of things. Mrs. McGrath, I think I lost probably a full third of your report because I couldn't hear you. And I wonder if other people were experiencing that same cutting out. Yeah, okay. When you talked about the vaccines that were being made available to educators, I'm wondering, is that certificated employees only, or is that also paraeducators and classified employees who are spending time with students?
Yeah, absolutely all staff members.
Okay, thank you.
Other questions from board members? Mrs. Frame.
Ms. McGrath, thank you. One question I did have about the vaccination is I know that Newsom has mandated 10% allocation for educators and to be vaccinated. I noticed some counties are doing a little bit more. Is from my understanding, that's the minimum that what Newsom has said. Is there, do you foresee a process in our own county of upping that potential percentage allotments, if that was kind of a minimum?
Yeah, it's a good question. It's public health determination. The process that I've heard that they're employing is that they have a task force that looks at the prioritizations and which groups to, allot what number to. I know obviously educators are super important to us and are our top priority. I think they have really hard decisions in front of them when they look at food workers, childcare workers, other groups. So I think that's their process. I have not heard of it increasing, but I do think that's a public health and they work through their task force to make those determinations.
Okay, thank you.
Other board member questions? Okay, seeing none, let's move on to item number 8.03, Measure D update. Mr. Pinkerton?
So yeah, just a couple of things to report tonight. First one, Morro Bay High School. Mr. Bonin was nice enough to put a live cam. You can go right on the Measure D website, projects Morro Bay High School, and there's a webcam that is looking at the quad project. So you can actually see anytime, you can pull it up at home, your computer. So it's going to be really cool to kind of witness that quad being redone at Morro Bay High School. I'll send the link to the board so you can see it, but anybody in the public can pull that up at any time. Number two, Mr. Bond and myself, Steve Stewart, Marcy Vidal, the athletic director, and Leslie O'Connor walked the San Luis Obispo High School track facility today. So that project is out to bid. Had a lot of interest at the bid walk, which was fantastic to see. So we're answering big questions at this point, but it was really good for us to walk the campus today with the principal, with the AD, and just talk about what the needs are, what we need to do, just to make sure that, again, it's a critical piece that even though we're doing construction, school's going on, kids are there, programs are happening. So it's really important that that communication happens. And so I just want the board to know that, that was a great visit today, good walk. And those are things that we do all the time with the site to make sure that they know what's happening on their campus. So really looking forward to that project starting. And then lastly, we were lucky enough to receive notification of funding for several of those Cte Facility Grants this week. So they came to Dr. Prater, forwarded them on to Kelly Lee. And so again, huge kudos to Kelly Lee in our Buildings and Grounds Department who helped us get those grants. It looks like the state bond sale will happen in April. And so we should potentially be funded right after that for those extra grants that, again, are just increasing the amount of Measure D dollars we have to complete all of the projects, in particular at our two comprehensive high schools. So excited about that.
Questions from board members? Okay, let's move on then to item number 9.01. This is a discussion action item. It's the presentation of the 2019-2020 audit report for building fund. That's our Measure D funds. Mr. Pinkerton?
Yeah, so a little bit later this year, audits across the board, I would say in all school districts have been later just due to, their inability to be at sites, and because normally they'll come to the district, they'll look through everything. So a lot of that has happened virtual this year. So this is something that normally would come to you in December. Well, here it is in, beginning of March, but again, was completed, was done. As part of passing a school bond measure, you have to do two types of audits. So one is your normal financial audit, where they look at the revenues, expenditures, transactions that take place, where the money's being invested for us county treasury, of course, because there's a lot of rules. It has to be in a very safe place in terms of bond funds. They look at transfers of funds in and out of those accounts. And so that's the first audit, the financial audit that's part of the board meeting tonight. And then the second one is what's called a performance audit. And so that is something that they look at basically the bond language, and they look at the projects that are being completed, and they compare the two, because you're only supposed to do projects that are specifically put into the bond language when the voters pass the bond. So that's what that performance audit does. So the other performance audit, they ensure that we have a citizens bond oversight committee as part of the bond that group's meeting, they're agendized, that they're looking at our bonds and our audits and our projects, and ensuring again that the money is being spent as the voters approved. And so those are the two audits that are presented in front of you. There was one misspelling on one of the letters. Mrs. Roger caught that today, so we actually made that adjustment to let her know. And Other than that, both audits, no findings, nothing that that was that any issues or problems either related to the fiscal transactions that were happening as well as the projects that we are doing are related to what was on the ballot. So on both ends, there was no findings on either side.
Mr. Bruckman?
And I should also let the board know that Mr. Holcomb is here as well, our Measure D
And then after, I would
advisor
just
as
say,
well.
Mr. Buckman, after the board has a chance to ask questions, I'll go to the public because this is an action item.
Oh, go ahead.
And no, please. We can ask, what I was thinking is we'll ask questions now and then go to the public and then we'll have a discussion after that. So would you like to ask a question, Mr. Buckman, or?
Yes, please.
Yeah, go ahead.
Thanks.
Of course.
So, Ryan, I think this paragraph is in all three of the reports, and I'm a little confused. I'm just looking for some guidance. It speaks to the district is authorized under government code to make direct investments, and then it lists all the investment things that somebody can.
Could you speak up, please?
Hi, Marilyn. Is that better? Okay, sorry.
Yeah, thanks, Mark.
Okay,
That is
so
better. I just didn't hear you.
So I think in all three of the letters, there's this set paragraph that talks about districts can make direct investments in, and then it lists all the things we can invest in it. And then there's another part that says it looks like we only have our money in county funds. And that's what I thought we were limited to. So I'm just kind of a little confused about that one section that says we can invest anywhere.
Yes, it is an interesting section. So I think what it does is it basically says you have to invest it in county. It's very specific about what you can invest it in. And then I think that bottom section underneath it actually outlines how the county invests funds. So I think that's how the two are support each other.
Mrs. Roger, do you have a question?
I do, thank you. My hand is not attached to my body, so it's a little awkward, but if you see it flying across the screen, it's trying to let you know I have a question. My question is, I'm delighted that we have two totally clean audits. They're spotless. But I wonder, since we have Mr. Holcomb with us, if I could ask him to give us his impression of the audits and then of his thoughts about any potential cost savings that he's currently aware of going forward, or any potential problem areas where he foresees overruns in the near future.
Well, the audit is, of course, our cash on hand and verifies that those funds are real and that they somewhat match our bond language, or exactly match our bond language. But for me, it relates to how does the cash on hand relate to the projects we have left to complete?
Exactly.
That's on the budgeting side. So I look at actual cash funds via the audit and look at the projects we have left. And then to address your question about cost overruns or additional expenses, program-wide, I think are probably our largest surprise. I don't know that you'd call it a cost overrun because the bids were good, but our Morro Bay Student Services building was a very expensive building. And so, in a budget, when you spend a lot on one project, you look and say, where must I spend less now? Because the funds are somewhat fixed, not entirely, but they are. And then we had some choices we made. We increased the math building, or the old annex, from 8 classrooms up to 12. We only had one opportunity to add additional classrooms to our campus at San Luis Obispo. The site there is very, very challenging. So we have the opposite issue at Morro Bay, where we don't need capacity. We have the ability to add it. At San Luis, we only had one opportunity. We took it, knowing what it would do to the budget. But along the way, we were able to bid well and watch our budgets and tailor them and pretty much, not pretty much, I would say completely, complete the Promise project at our 2 high school, which were the focus of our mod measure. We also increased the J wing at Morro Bay High School, just kind of acknowledging the trends in education and needs that were unmet. So that was a great move, although again, it caused a little budget stress. SOD at San Luis Obispo High School, looking at the kids coming back, looking at the athletic calendar, it was a good move to put sod in rather than wait and hope for seeded grass to mature to a playable field. So we jump-started that process, and I think that was a wise move. Of course, all of those things would have tanked our budget had it not been for some extraordinary efforts on the funding side. And our CTE grants, Mr. Pinkerton made reference to Kelly Lee, who's done a wonderful job, and that's been a huge source of extra funding. And then we had, I would almost call it a fortuitous windfall of developer fees coming in very, very strongly, and apparently will continue. So add that to a robust bid environment where we have a lot of bidders. We have a lot of bidders, we have lesser costs. So we can be very happy about that. So that's kind of a look at 10,000 feet. We're doing what we said we'd do for the voters. We're completing our projects. As the audit shows, we have sufficient cash, and then the good news of extra CTE money. So overall, I think we'll land this giant program on the runway right where we wanted to land it. So that's my summation in a nutshell on budget.
Thank you. I really appreciate hearing your thoughts on things.
While I've got you there, Mr. Holcomb, one of the things I've been hearing about recently are increased costs for raw materials. And I know in the past we were worried about steel prices, concrete prices. How are we feeling about those right now, given sort of the world economy? Because I know steel, for example, a lot of that's from overseas.
Well, economically, the world has taken a hit. So while we would have seen in an ordinary times massive increases in commodities, they have gone up slightly, but not to the degree we would have seen. And then that's offset by, in the local area, less projects bidding, which means more bidders on our projects. So overall, it's a lot of ups and downs. Budgets are by nature dynamic, and I think ours has been managed well. Mr. Pinkerton's kind of a budget superstar. So, and that's great to work with. He doesn't try to invent money, and that's a relief for a guy like myself. So overall, good shape.
Thank you. Any other board questions or comments? Okay, I'm going to go to the public now. Just a reminder, if any member of the public would like to comment on this item, you're more than welcome to do that. You would be given 3 minutes. Please click on the participants icon at the bottom of your screen, select raise your hand. I'll call your name, and you can restart your video if you wish, unmute your audio. Again, if you need assistance with your video, please let us know. We'll attempt to fix it. If you have a problem with your audio, please click on the thumbs down icon and we'll attempt to assist you. Is there anyone who'd like to address the board on this item? Seeing no one, I'll bring it back to the board for a vote. Would someone like to make a motion? Motion by Mrs. Sheffer.
Yes, I'd like to move that we accept the audit as presented.
And I believe we have a second by Mrs. Frame. Is there any other discussion from board members on this item? Okay, seeing none, I'm going to bring it back for a vote. Mrs. Sheffer?
Yes.
Mrs. Frame? Mrs. Rogers?
Yes.
Dr. Eisendrath Rogers?
Yes.
Mrs. Dobler-Drew?
Yes.
Mr. Buckman? And I am a yes. Okay, the motion passes 7-0. Let's move on to item number 9.02. This is a discussion item, 4-year planning update. This is being presented by Mrs. Frost. Welcome, Mrs. Frost.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it. I am, let's see, Mandy, if you could give me rights to share screen. You have them. Thank you. All right, thank you all. Again, my name is Diane Frost, and I'm the Director of Student Support Services, and I am here with Shelly Benson, and she is our school counselor on special assignment, actually a new position in San Luis Coastal this year, and I'm thrilled to have her with us. Tonight, we're talking about academic planning and actually what is often called the four-year plan. We're talking about how children in the middle grades prepare for high school and prepare for college and career. This is something that our counselors and administrators have been doing with their students, preparing them and then implementing plans for years. Over the course of the last couple of years, we've really looked at our process, analyzed how effective it was, and then made some changes. And then over the course of the last 6 months, we've had huge changes with the implementation of Aries when we moved from Power School. So we'll talk a little bit about that as well. Just wanted to talk to you a little bit about the actual process that we go through. You'll see that we have a calendar of events to help our 8th graders plan for high school, knowing that those plans they make are so important to the college and career goals that they've set for themselves. So in February and March, our middle school staff meet with 8th graders and really bring that foundational information to them. Academic vocabulary, high school graduation and college entrance requirements, what a Cte pathway is, what elective options are, all of those myriad items that kids have to understand before they can make their four-year plans. Both of our middle schools are talking about this 7th and 8th grade, but it really ratchets up February and March. In March, we turn the show over to our high school staff. So our counselors and administrators will have parent nights and assemblies with our 8th graders. They'll talk about academic planning and registration. And this is really a precursor to our one-to-one counselor student meetings that we implemented last year. In March and April, that's when our high school counselors meet one-on-one with our 8th graders. We'll talk a little bit more about those meetings as we go through the presentation, but they update the academic plans during that time. And then finally, in April, our parents of the 8th graders review those plans and submit them for approval by high school counselors. This year, our middle school principals are going to be deeply involved in this process and really take the time to look at every one of the plans with their knowledge of the students, with their knowledge of their needs and what the high school has to offer, and literally approve those plans as they move on. All right, Mrs. Benson's going to talk a little bit about Aries implementation.
Great. Thank you so much. I'm happy to be on video. I'm happy to be not on video, but I won't let me. So just just wanted you guys to know that I'm not sure if that's a possibility, but I'll just go ahead and oh, there we go. Hi everybody. Just wanted to make sure you could put a face with a name. So this slide is really just to emphasize what Mrs. Frost was already talking about, how we have switched to a new student information system named Aries, and it is it's been an interesting time. It's been some really good learning going on by all of the staff at our schools. And for school counselors and our administration, those people working really closely with the academic plans, it's an absolute game changer. So thank you very much for supporting our move to Aries. The academic plans in Aries are populated in the 8th grade. There's also a possibility of creating a 7-year plan, which we're very interested in, and you'll hear a little bit about that later. I think it's important to point out that these academic plans are currently created in the 8th grade, but they're always maintained and updated continuously throughout high school. Parents have access to them, students have access to them, and this has always been true, but now it's live and you can see it changing. You can see courses being added, and I'm going to give you a visual of that in just a second. These plans allow students to plan for high school graduation, for college entrance, for the A through G completion, Cte Pathways, like just about everything. And we're just excited to start using them. Our high schools have started this week, so we are fine-tuning things so we have it perfect for our 8th graders. All right, so we wanted you guys to have a visual of what these plans look like. This would be what a plan would look like of a student who is currently in the 10th grade, and what their courses are for their entire 4 years. So I think it's important to point out, just as you're looking to kind of wrap your brain around this, I know it can kind of be hard to look at. The 9th grade courses are the courses in green right there. And those courses are green because the student is a 10th grader and they already completed those courses. So you can see in the legend there that it says that the green courses are the courses from their transcript. Thank you, Mrs. Frost. So this is very exciting for us because these are updated as kids complete classes, where in the past we had to go in as school counselors and take notes and go through the paper transcript to make sure we weren't missing anything. Well, now it's all one and the same system, and the system knows when a kid has completed those courses. So we'll be able to see that in real time. The current courses that the student's taking are listed in orange. So the student can always look on here. They have other places in Aries where they can see their classes and grades, but they can always go here and see the current courses that they're enrolled in. They have their courses that are planned that are blue. And so that would be the 11th and 12th grade courses for this student. So we can always update things in real time. We can look at this with students. This view that you're looking at is the high school graduation view, and it lists all the different subject areas down the left-hand side there that you need in order to earn your diploma. And then it also includes the credits needed so that as you're planning, you can plan and make sure that you have all the credits in every single area that you need. So it's really exciting for us. This is something I've been a school counselor for 24 years, and this is just always something we've done on paper with kids, or we've done on like a spreadsheet, and then we've had to manually update things and maybe email as an attachment to a parent. Now the parent will have the same view that we have, that the student has, that admin has. So we're just really excited about getting to use these. So here we wanted to show you, these are the exact same courses that you were just looking at, but the yellow arrow is pointing to a tab that a student can click right there that has the college requirements. So they can see how those exact same courses that they were planning for high school graduation translate to UC and CSU requirements. So it walks them through the subject areas. So when we're always referring to A through G, there they are over there under the subject area column. So you can see all the A through G requirements. It also shows their credits needed. So this student is planning very well. They have everything that they need. They can kind of see exactly where they are and when they're planning to take those courses. It also includes courses that aren't required. So for the college entrance requirements, and for instance, just as an example, in this case, it would be yearbook. That doesn't mean the student shouldn't take that. That's just they're not courses that are required, but that gives us a real opportunity to talk with students about, isn't that a great thing to take? There's some real leadership opportunities there. This could be a really good extracurricular to include on your college applications. And so it really gives us a platform to talk with kids about how they're meeting requirements, but then also how they're really making themselves more competitive for entrance. I think that's it. There we go.
Thank you, Shelley, very much. And now we get back to the one-to-one meetings. I mentioned earlier that our middle school counselors, our middle school administrators will be setting the foundation and beginning the students on their 4-year plan build. But when the high school counselors come down and do the one-to-one meetings with our students, that's when they will really finalize the 4-year plan for input and final approval approval by the parent. The initial academic plan is reviewed and updated. The 9th grade courses are approved, and eventually Aries will pull the courses from the child's 4-year plan to the scheduling module so that our administrators can schedule their classes. I think this piece is really important, and I know that Shelley talked about it early on. These are live plans. What they create in 8th grade, their counselors will talk to them about over the course of the next 4 years, making sure that any new goals the child sets, a different college they want to go through, a different pathway is always supported in that 4-year plan. And then just to give you a little idea about what those one-to-one meetings look like. And I think it's important to know that these are time intensive for our counselors, but they're so important for our students. We want to make sure that they're packed with good information. So our first priority is to complete the 4-year plan, talk about the classes, talk about those foundational vocabulary that our middle school staffs went over. What is college prep? What does it mean to take an AP class? Why do you have to do A through G? All of those foundational pieces. Talking about grades and the importance, even freshman year, which is a little myth out there that the colleges don't look at your freshman year. And then finally, what we think is really important is a personal connection to your high school counselor. Last year, when we did our one-to-one meetings, we scheduled students really with the counselor who was available at the time when they were at the middle school. This year, we're concentrating on each counselor meeting with the students on their caseload, developing that connection that they can continue when the kids come for their freshman year on campus. And then second priority, how do you feel about your plans? What are you excited about? What are you nervous about? What are you looking forward to? What kind of help do you think you'll need? And then a little talk about sports, clubs, activities, how to really get involved at the high school level. Our one-to-one meetings are going to look differently with different students. We will have students who are English learners, students who maybe are SED, might have a little bit more time on this, a little bit more work with the secondary counselor, where a student who comes in with a completed plan that they've worked on with their parent might have a little bit less time. Our children who are EL, who are SED, who are in AVID might have a follow-up from the counselor as necessary. So it really is based on the needs of the student.
That was perfect. So these are some of the helpful tools I just wanted to share with you guys. Some of our incredible parents and incredible staff have helped us to develop these over the years. So the middle schools are currently using these to sort of set the foundation for the high school visit to come over. This helpful planning tool on the left of your screen is the flow chart of what kids would need to complete in each area. So it's set up A through G. So it starts out with your social studies and moves down to English, math, and so on. And then we've listed the graduation requirement for each area, the UCCSU requirement for each area, and then the highly competitive college sort of requirement. So each high school has its own version of these. They can be found online, but they are this sort of, I just wanted to show you an example of what the middle schools are kind of covering with the kids prior to us getting there. So they're really helping the kids to understand. There's a lot to understand. And so it's helping to kind of front load the kids before we get there and before the high school counselors get there and start talking to them. Also included in those handouts are all of our CTE pathways. I mean, we just have an incredible CTE offering. And sometimes, you know, kids have a lot of questions about what they can complete and when, what counts for what, does it count for college if I take it for this, and lots of questions. So we really are also taking our time to front load them before they're making those decisions with tools like the CTE pathway completer chart. This is just an example of kind of what went on last year. We would love to be able to do that this year, but it could be Zoom, it could be one-on-one, you know, we're not sure. We're definitely rolling with it, and we'll figure that out as we go. Included also, and I just want you guys to be aware of this, is a parent input. There's a lot of parent information that gets sent home. That begins very early on in middle school. There are different planning nights. There's assignments that go along with this. So it's not like a one-time meeting and then everything's over and you've decided everything in that one meeting. There's a lot of prep, a lot of foundational work. Our middle school staff's just stepped up huge and been a really big part of all of this planning. High school counselors, we have always in the past shared the academic plan. Now it's part of Aries and it will be required for parents to review and submit it. So they can do that with questions and they submit it to the high school counselor for approval. We are going through that process right now with our current high school students. And so we're very excited about that. The high school counselors have to approve those academic plans. And we know at the middle school, the principals will also be approving those plans. So I think you rest assured there will be some very good plans, solid plans for kids to go through high school with. Let's see. I also wanted to mention that this doesn't happen in a vacuum. I guess after doing this years and years and years, I just made the assumption that of course teachers are involved, but when Mrs. Frost and I were working through this, I thought it was really, really important to point out to you guys that we could not do this without our teachers. So our teachers are instrumental in the planning. They review course lists for us. They suggest kids who maybe could be in more challenging classes and aren't, working up to their full potential. They look at who needs academic intervention. They suggest kids to us that, maybe need a little more social and emotional support. They're just, they're the people that are present every day with students, and they do an incredible job helping us, really guide the kids in their academic planning. So a little shout out to our teachers there because they're a huge part of all this.
Thank you, Shelley. And then if we just talk about what our next steps are in academic planning, Aries will definitely monitor the fidelity and ease of using the academic plan to do the actual master schedule scheduling. We're very excited about that. And then the second point is something that Shelley and I have talked about quite a bit, building a capacity for a 5-year and then a 6-year and then finally a 7-year plan by working with administrators and counselors and students, bringing our elementary counselors into this. When you're working with your 5th graders and 6th graders and they're thinking about middle school, they can also be thinking about high school. And then finally, to expand our selection of CCGI, that's the California Colleges program that we have, lessons for our 6th and 5th graders so that we can set that foundation for college and career and academic planning. So that's the end of our slides. I'm wondering if the board or anybody else has any questions for either me or Shelley. Ms. Dobler-Drew?
Let me see if there's
Okay,
Let me see if there's anybody from, I know this is not an action item, but I'd like to see if there's anyone from the public that would like to address us on this. Yes, I see some, we have a hand up, I believe. So, I believe Lena, is it Lena Egan?
Yes, so again, I am so excited about the Aries. It looks amazing. And thank you guys for all of your hard work. I think from the last year or two, this whole 4-year planning has been taking off. So I just wanted to acknowledge everybody for all of their hard work and all the counselors and at the middle school as well as the high school. I did have a question regarding summer school and when those schedules would come out, because in an ideal world, that would help in this 4-year plan because the kids can pick whatever courses they want to take over summer school. I just wasn't sure. And it might be a different group that would address when summer school options come up, but I did want to ask about that. Thank you.
Yeah, I have to say that I'm not deeply involved in summer school. I know that Shelley is working with Isla, helping with the planning, but I don't know if Mrs. McGrath has that answer or anybody else.
So perhaps just for the public, sort of a general idea of when we'll be talking about summer school and when these types of things might be available for parents to hear from their school administration on?
I see Mr. Mayfield's light coming on. Did you want to answer that, Mr.
Yeah.
Mayfield?
Yeah, I'd be happy to address that. We're actively planning for summer school now. In fact, we had a meeting this morning that will, we're looking into not only this coming summer, but also what we're going to do in future years to make summer education a more robust experience for students. I can't tell you exactly when that will come out, but it will be soon. It's the beginning of March now, and we're getting close to plans. We have dates for secondary, for high school, not yet for middle school or elementary, but we should have those within the next month out to families and the community.
Can I say one thing? Lena, I really appreciate your question, and it's been a big part of creating these new academic plans is how can we access summer school? Where do we put that? So I think in this year, we're moving forward, planning, doing all of our, regular steps that we would to plan for summer school for the high school level, at least. I think in future years, once Aries is all set up, it will definitely be a part of the academic plan. And you'll be able to, my understanding is you'll be able to see those courses in there, and kids will be able to plan which summer they want to take classes. So we're almost there.
Great. I see Mila Voyevich-Labar has a question or a comment. Mila, your 3 minutes is beginning now.
Hi, good evening. Thank you so much. First of all, I just really appreciate the leadership of both Diane Frost and Shelley Benson. I'm a teacher in the classroom at Laguna Middle School, and this Aries program is fantastic, helping students understand their future years. So I just applaud all the friendly usability of the entire program to both Diane and Shelley. The other issue is I also really appreciate Rick Mayfield's comments about summer school being offered. And as you go ahead and look at this, the one concern that I have is making sure that all of the EL parents completely understand this process, completely understand where the students can end up. And so I just really want to make sure that the bilingual EL component is there. But again, great job as a teacher in the classroom. My principal, John Calandro, and Vice Principal Scott Scaldi have it in our advisory period. It has been very well presented. The timing is perfect. And I just really appreciate being able to do this. But again, my concern is for those EL students and those, again, to make sure it's as equitable as possible. Thank you very much.
Great. Thank you very much. Is there anyone else? I'm not seeing anyone else. I'll bring it back to the board. I think Ms. Dobler-Dree, you had your hand up.
Yes, thank you. It's very exciting to see this program, and some of my questions you might have asked in the past, but some of them are current. And one of them was that in one of our surveys that we heard, it might have been, I think it was during the study session, it might have been a youth truth. There was a statement that a number of students were reassessing their plans after high school. So in light of that, which I don't have any further details yet on, I was wondering if perhaps this time of change with all that's been happening might mean that we do need to see them more often in a formal sense, like at the end of each semester. And in case they wanted to make changes. I love the 7-year plan. I think the earlier you start, the better. And I was wondering if during these sessions that the students are able to get in touch with their passion about what they want to do, if there are instruments to do that, to help them really get a sense of their full identity as individuals and what they are meant to be doing, so to speak, in life. And I just think that this is a wonderful vehicle for students to just really get a good start on planning their whole life ahead of them. It's a wonderful thing to have this much support from all of you, and so creatively done. Let's see if I had another question. I don't mean to lay them on you, but I think that's it. So the main question is how they find themselves during these counseling interviews, and if they could now have more access. I heard you say that it's not a one and done, just annual thing. So I assume then they have ongoing free access to make appointments as they wish, as well as the counselors reaching out to students to set up those appointments as they see necessary. So
Shelley, do you want to talk about how this might progress through once they leave 8th grade, maybe through freshman, sophomore, junior, when they do want to change something?
Sure. And I really appreciate the questions that you just asked. So thank you. This is just one piece of what the high school counselor does, and school counselors at all levels. The academic planning part is one piece. And I think that the complexity of academic planning you touched on a little bit, because plans change, kids change, their interests change. And that's a big part of why we're so excited that this academic plan is so visually easy to kind of understand, and that parents have access, kids have access, administrators, when they're meeting with them, relationship is key. And I think you'll see that in our next presentation. Mm-hmm. And any of us who have worked so long with all these kids, we know that that's the foundation, right? That relationship and getting to talk to kids and finding that time to have those meetings. What we look for is information to inform those meetings so that when we are having them, the time is valuable. So we have a number of different programs that our school counselors employ. Mrs. Frost mentioned CCGI. That's a big career interest sort of program that we run, our counselors run. There are fall presentations, spring presentations, and students and parents are able to access that platform as well. And that is a continuous, starts in 7th grade and goes all the way through, and kids build upon the different surveys that they're taking and different lessons that they're learning through CCGI to kind of find out, what am I interested in? What am I good at? And that really helps to inform course decisions. So that would really help them choose, do I go into automotive? Am I looking at the leadership potential? Like what are my strengths and what do I want to do? Is it something in the arts? Is it something, we're just so lucky to work in this district and have so many options for our kids. So there's a lot that goes into these, and this is really about academic planning in the course selection sense, but there's so much more that goes into the discussion. And if at the very least we're doing that annually, I would say school counselors are doing it all the time. Coming off of this year, it's been an incredible, sort of recreating and reimagining of all of our services and how we get information to kids and how they get information back to us. So I think we're looking forward to coming back to, what we are more familiar with, what school counselors are more familiar with, but it's also an incredible opportunity to make changes and to have things be better and more accessible to all kids. So I hope that answered your question.
Thank you, Shelley. Thank you.
Thank you.
Other, Dr. Eisendrath Rogers, and then Mrs. Frame, and then Mrs. Sheffer.
Just checking to see how we're tracing and tracking our first gen students, both in middle school and high school.
And so by first gen, are you thinking the kids that we had last year do the one-to-one meetings?
First generation of kids out of a family that's not gone on to college after high school.
So Shelley, are you able to talk about that? So children who are not going off to college and tracking them after high school? I'm sorry, I may be misunderstanding the question.
It's okay. It's the mask.
I'm so sorry.
No, this is the first. We're looking at the first generation of students from parents who did not attend college, and so there are students who are maybe at risk of not going on to college simply because they don't have that kind of mentorship. So I'm looking to see how we're tracking those students.
Honestly, I think somebody else in the group might have an answer of more depth. And if I'm not able to answer now, I'm certainly happy to get information for you. But I know at the high school level, our counselors look very closely at the students who are in AVID. They spend a lot of time and effort and emotion with our English learners, with our SED students. We track those children for graduation rate. We track those children for A through G completion, that type of thing. And we look at that data as a group. And then we try to decide what next steps would be, what would be effective for these children. It's kind of like when we talked a little bit about the one-on-one meetings. We try to do what we consider our at-risk kids. Those are the first meetings we have. We want to meet with our AVID kids. We want to meet with our SED kids. We want to meet with our EL children. So we really are trying to bulk up the supports to those children who we think need more effort to be college and career ready. I hope that answers your question. If not, we can get more information.
Just to add a little icing to that cake, it's the idea of having our high school teachers get into the habit of seeing the talent in a kid that other people don't see that prospect for them in the future, and for them to grab them and say, "You're coming into my AP English class." That was the idea.
Thank you. Thank you. Shelley, I think you kind of touched on that a little bit when we were talking about teacher input on the academic plans. The idea that we are asking our teachers to find those kids who could handle a greater challenge and push them in that direction. I don't know if you'd add anything else to that, Shelley?
I would just go back to relationship and those students finding an adult on campus or on screen that they trust and that they're willing to talk to about that. Because, unfortunately, like they don't all come with like a label that says like, all the things that we want to know about them. And so we really need that time to get to know kids. We will find like our incredible administration getting to know kids on a different level, and they bring kids into the counseling office. And I think that it's just about getting to know them and working with teachers and administrators, coaches, all kinds of incredible staff that are really looking out for the kids in our campus. And so I know those first generation kids are, they are definitely very important to us, and kids that we work closely with their parents with, and one-on-one with them as well. So I appreciate that question.
Mrs. Frame, then Mrs. Sheffer, and then Mr. Buckman.
Ms. Frost and Ms. Benson, thank you. It's very exciting. I was wanting to piggyback a little bit on Ms. Eisendrath Rogers, what she was saying. And given the complexity and potential of Aries, and our goal of equity, and when I look about that equity, I'm looking upon the first gen student, but also their families. So this is a kind of a really complex issue and a deep dive. So how do we have the resources and the system kind of in place to begin really looking at, because, once we begin to look at our, great teachers who are pulling students in, it's sort of what needs to happen before those conversations that, we need to have with our first gen families. So I guess the question is, do you have really the resources to be able to kind of really develop this at a deeper level than, if that goal is kind of equity and looking at our systems of dealing with our first gen? Do you really have and maybe you can't address that because you guys are doing, working really hard and it's different, it's COVID, but it's just a question I have about what other ways can this process be supported?
That's a very good question.
You don't have to answer that because I'm just throwing.
No, it's a really good question. One thing I will say to you is our counselors, both elementary and secondary, When they come together, they really talk about the needs of the students and the programs we have in place and what we need to do next. So I think that's important. I think you'll see those conversations on the individual sites as well. I have to give a shout out to Shelley as our school counselor on special assignment. She's done a tremendous job on working on these things as well, facilitating those difficult conversations. When you talk about first gen kids and what more we can do, we have the Avid at the middle school, and I know they're really instrumental in working with the students and working with the parents, our ELACs and our DLACs. I have to say at SLO High, they suffered the loss of Shelley when she became school counselor on special assignment. And then they hired a bilingual male high school counselor who is just a wonderful resource for children on that campus and plants himself in places like the Avid classroom and that kind of thing. So I think it's a really good question. I think it's an area that we can always dig deeper in, but it is something that we acknowledge and that we're working towards. Shelley, I don't know if you'd add anything else to that.
No, I mean, I think that's incredible. And our Avid program is absolutely amazing. I'm sure if they haven't, that they will, or they do presentations for you guys, because it's an incredible program. And I know that they have an absolutely amazing college acceptance track record. And I don't want to assume that all first generation students are in Avid, but it is a program designed around their needs, and we really do try to encourage kids, especially, early. Mr. Scaldi does a great job getting kids involved early in our Avid program. And those kids they're committed. Man, it's the first thing that goes on their academic plan. Like, they just want to keep it all 4 years. Like, they really love the program, the family that it creates. And I think it helps with parents, it helps their understanding, deepen their understanding of what's going on as far as academic planning, and just the idea of leaving home to go to college. We get so many of our Avid kids into colleges, and then it's that conversation about, okay, are you ready to move away? You ready to leave? So I don't know the exact figures, but I do know, at least at SLO High, they had something like 100% of their Avid students accepted this year to four-year colleges. So it's not really, I hate to say it's tracking, but we are watching those kids, and we are taking care of them, and we're nurturing them and fostering really their college going attitudes, I guess, or goals. The best thing is when you show a kid that they're qualified, and they don't even, they're like, what? I can go to college? You're like, yeah, you're right on track. You're doing everything you need to do. You're getting all A's and B's, or, and they're just, this pride that you see in them is pretty overwhelming.
Have a follow-up question, Mrs. Frame?
This is really exciting. The one other question I had to ask is, when a student takes Avid, does that count as an elective? And so,
yeah,
yes, no?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, thank you.
Mrs. Sheffer.
Yes, thank you. I have a couple of comments and questions, if I may. One is on the 4-year, on that planner, the one that you showed as a slide, one of the things that was on there was, yearbook, and you just were saying that indicates an extracurricular activity or something. And I'm wondering if it's possible, and this is not something, I wouldn't suggest this would be on the another load on the counselor's shoulders, but perhaps just a question to ask the students, tell me about the extracurriculars, and put those on there, because I know that when students begin applying for colleges, it can sometimes be difficult to remember the clubs and the sports and the things they did, or what year did I do this? Did I do this the year that it should go on the application? So I didn't know if it was possible to almost have that be a notes section on that form that students are able to fill in when they meet with the counselors, to remember that they, took tennis and volunteered at Woods Humane Society and, or had a part-time job and worked on yearbook or something like that. I just didn't know whether that was possible to have on the form.
I'm happy to answer that for you, Ellen. The CCGI platform has that, and that's when we go over who are you and what do you love to do and all of that, and it gives kids a place to track that and to keep track of those things. The academic planner are just courses, so this is just courses. Like yearbook is a course, it's just not an A through G course. So in looking at that one screen that I was showing you guys, that's where athletics would go, and all different kinds of courses that aren't necessarily A through G. But unfortunately in the academic planner, it's just courses.
Okay.
So they would have to track that stuff in CCGI.
Okay, because I just know that, maybe, I should have been keeping track of these things. I don't, it's hard now.
Oh yeah, no, every kid comes in and goes, I don't have anything to put on my college app. I didn't do anything. What are you talking about? You haven't slept.
And the parents may not realize the importance of keeping track of those things. And I think that's part of it, is that as counselors and teachers, you all know how important that is. But when parents, especially the first kid, is getting, you're doing that, it's really new. I mean, I didn't know from A through G. And, so another question I have is, do you still do the parent nights with the parents come and sit there and you describe what A through G is and what this means, and their translators and all of that still occurs, so that the parents
it all
occurred.
It all occurred until last spring. Now it's all happening virtually.
I understand.
But same thing as when you were there. We still do those same big nights.
Okay.
And now there's a big, beautiful place where we can do them, but I don't think anyone's gotten to use it yet.
Yeah. So, and then lastly, this is following up a little bit on what a couple other people have indicated about, recognizing talent. And I think back to a time when we heard about a student who was going to college to major in physics, but she had taken an auto class as an elective at San Luis High, and that it ended up holding her in really good stead. And I think that some of that is for any student, and not just, saying you should take an AP class, but for a teacher to be able to say, I see you seem really interested in working with your hands. Maybe you'd like to take a ceramics class or the woodworking class or something like that, just to have that recognition of whatever interests a student may have, because I know those are the opportunities that can really provide guidance and change some kids' lives. Like, no, I didn't know there was a class like that. It's not something I would ever have looked into before. And suddenly a whole new world has opened up to them. So I think it's recognizing that spark, or that and the student may not even realize that this could be an interest. I mean, that's what the guidance and counselor is for, I think, that, to help provide some of that. And it's really appreciated. I know that I've heard many stories of kids saying, a teacher said, I should take this class, and I would never have done it otherwise. And so I think that the adults can at times recognize things in the students they see that the students themselves haven't tapped into yet. So thank you for all this work.
Thank you. Thank you. We
Mr.
really
Buckman.
appreciate your time and attention. Mr. Buckman?
Hi, Diane. Hi, Shelley. I'm going to follow sort of directly on Ellen's comments, but more towards, does the Aries system have a process for allowing kids to choose not to go to college, not to university, but go directly into career or trade?
Well, one of the
kids that are.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Oh no, one of the exciting things that we've built into it, and we're still building. I've been working with Liz Moore on creating all of our Cte Pathways. So, and you just can choose an entire pathway, or you can choose just the beginning introductory course to kind of try it out. There's a variety of different ways to sort of lay those course sequences into your academic plan. So we're really excited about that, because that has been a little confusing for kids. Like, they know what they're interested in, but they're not entirely sure which 5-course sequence or 3-course sequence they need to take. So I would say that is a huge plus of Aries, and we're really excited about that. Kids are using that right now, and we're, the counselors are calling me going, hey, we need this, we need that, so this is, again, the first time we're going through it, but I think it's working beautifully so far. And the initial plan is always built on high school graduation. So that's that initial plan, and then switching the views to see where you're meeting the college entrance requirements and where you're meeting A through G. And, we have such a robust and rigorous school district that often our kids are meeting college entrance requirements, and maybe their goal is to graduate high school, but they're doing it all one and the same. So many of our CTE courses count for A through G. So there's a lot of overlap. And yeah, so I think going back to the CCGI platform, learning what their strengths are, where their talents lie, and then exploring, all our different course offerings at both high schools. I think that really, supports them in making a choice to go to a trade school if they want, or start at a community college and, do a specific program there.
So I know we have relationships with colleges and universities. I'm just wondering whether we've been able to build some relationships with, let's say, some of the trades and the need to take an apprenticeship program.
I know that we make that information available to our students. I don't know, and a lot of that is through, when they do get a certain answer on the CCGI lessons, then we're open. We can talk with them about that. They can click to find those apprenticeship programs through CCGI. So there is a direct link. If you turn out that you would be an excellent electrician, right, then it shows you exactly where those apprenticeship programs are. Liz has done a really incredible job at connecting us locally to people. So there's a lot of, really great local people in our community who are willing to take kids on if it's not through the formal apprenticeship, like through a union. But that's been a big coup for us through her work. So I think we are connecting kids to that. I think we could always do a better job, in all areas, but.
Yeah, Liz is amazing, as are you. I have just 2 others, Chris. So I'd just like to add, when we talk about the first gen kids, I'm going to assume that you also make use of the data where we have the numbers on the socioeconomically disadvantaged kids. My understanding is it makes up about 40% of our population. And so we're helping those kids that may grow up not being sort of aimed like an arrow at college, especially because of finances.
Mm-hmm. Yes, definitely.
I keep looking for good things that may come out of this whole COVID thing. And I'm thinking about the parent nights that you did, and the 2 that I attended with my kids, and the attendance back then wasn't the greatest. And I'm just wondering whether this Zoom access could really help with enlarging the attendance at those parent meetings. And so I'm hoping we don't lose that.
Yeah, I definitely, all of this is a silver lining, this right here, right? The access that we've been able to provide. So I don't see that going anywhere. I mean, I just think it will be an addition to what we're doing in person.
Are there any other questions from board members? Mrs. Roger.
Thank you. Well, first, I'd like to really support Mr. Buckman's request for information and interest in CTE pathways for our students. And I'm glad that attention is being paid to that, because we know that all kids are not college bound, and we need to provide a robust program that is a college alternative for those who choose to go that route. And then the other thing I wanted to say was that I'd like to elaborate a little bit on Milo Vujovic-Labar's comment about our EL parents, because what I'm seeing, I think I'm seeing from this 8th grade planning document that we're doing is that we're now closing or creating the triangle that we've talked about for such a long time, that is the student, the school, and the family. And when we do that, and when we include the parents in the planning, then I'm wondering about, you know, students who may have once been EL but now are RFEPT, but their parents are not bilingual. And how do we plan to get parents to really understand the planning process that they will be signing off on?
I can say that, you know, we come back to our AVID classes a lot. We come back to our ELAC and DLAC meetings a lot. But before this process starts at, say, Laguna Middle School, the AVID teacher is bringing it to the kids ahead of time. They are front loading the students on exactly what we'll be doing. I can't tell you that they're talking about it at ELAC, but I know that it's an important time, an important topic for that, where we have parents of our bilingual students there, where we can talk and teach our parents about college pathways. You know that we have our family advocates, and our family advocates are bilingual. We have a bilingual counselor at Laguna Middle School, now a bilingual counselor at SLO High. So I do think we're building a system that supports the families to also understand this really complicated process and this really complicated pathway to make it to college. I don't think we're there, but I think we're building the foundation for it. I don't know if you'd add anything else, Shelley.
I think definitely, you know, it's not really included in this, but it is a part of our process to present this at ELAC every year. So we would go, I've traditionally went twice just from SLO High to Laguna to present the whole process. I would assume as we expand this into a 7-year, it would just become part of our annual presentation to our ELAC groups, and those parent groups are incredible. I mean, the questions they ask, like, it's a great evening. It turned into multiple evenings thanks to middle school administrators and our own high school administrators. We do it all the way through every year. It doesn't just happen like once in 8th grade. So that's a great group too.
Well, when we talk about AVID, which is a wonderful, fabulous program, that program targets students who will be the first in their families to go to college, as I understand it. So it doesn't specifically target ELs. And Mila's question had to do with EL parents and their comprehension and their ability to participate in the planning process. And I think that's really important. And I would like us not to lose sight of that as a goal, to find a way to include either via translation, via the advocates, or via counselors who are bilingual, that we make a real strong concerted effort to include those parents, because we talk a lot about, you know, the three-legged stool, and if we're going to talk about it, we need to make it viable, and it doesn't work if it's not viable for a large group of our parents.
Thank you very much. Agreed.
Okay. I think I heard a request from 2 board members for more information about our CTE programs. Is that correct, Mrs. Roger and Mr. Buckman? And looks like Mrs. Dobler-Drew is also requesting that information.
I don't
Dr.
recall
Prater,
requesting more information.
I know that we've had those presentations before with Liz Moore. Her name just slipped my mind. I'm sorry. So I guess the question is, what are board members looking for in terms of this? Are we looking for a Friday notes? Are we looking for for a presentation reviewing the career pathways that I believe we heard from last year?
Yeah,
Mr. Buckman,
so
what are you thinking?
so Eric, I know you've got some stuff pretty planned out for the year. I appreciate it. And so is Liz on tap to give us? Okay, so that would be fine with me. Is it months away or is it soon?
I believe our CTE presentation comes right after spring break.
Okay.
So it'll be in April. And as well, we're talking about it in the strategic sessions as well.
That's right. So thanks, Chris. I really appreciate your catching that.
Yeah. Mrs. Roger.
Thank you. Well, when I seconded Mr. Buckman's interest in providing information to students for a strong CTE pathway, I was not intending to ask administration to provide any additional information to me.
Okay, thank you very much. I wasn't sure, and I just wanted to clarify that. I thought I heard that as a request, but it sounds like we're going to be getting that information after spring break. I know that we've done updates with Mrs. Moore every year, and I think it's going to be something that the community will want to hear from. And I guess I would just end with it sounds like we'll be hearing more about this, and probably as part of our LCAP presentation.
Yeah, there's multiple tracks occurring here. One of them is the LCAP process. You'll see CTE built into the LCAP. You'll also hear in presentations at a board meeting like this in April. And as well, you'll receive as part of your board strategic sessions each month leading up. I believe those are coming to you in May. So you'll have lots of information, and then the board approves the LCAP and the budget in June.
Yeah, I was thinking specifically about the conversation about the 4-year plans and our desire to have our first generation students and who may typically be our SED students. So I think we'll be hearing more about that as well. I'm not seeing any more comments from board members. We're going to take about a 6-minute break. It looks to me like it's about 3 minutes after 8 o'clock, according to the clock here. The board will take a recess until 10 minutes after 8, according to the clock in here. So we'll see you all back in about 6 or 7 minutes. Okay, the board is now back in session. Is there anyone who needs translation? If there is, would you please use the icon on your Zoom to raise your hand? I'm not seeing anyone, so the board will resume now with item number 9.03, Student Support Services Update. And I believe that we're back with Mrs. Frost.
Yes, we are. Thank you. I'm going to share screen one more time. Okay. Sorry. There we go. All right, thank you all. This is very student services heavy this evening, and I appreciate your time on these important subjects. Again, I'm Diane Frost. I'm the Director of Student Support Services. Annually, we try to do an update for the board on important happenings, data, that type of thing as it relates to student support services. And we're usually special education heavy. This evening, we'd like to just really give you some bare bones on what we've been doing in special education and our in-person programming over the course of the last 6 months, but then spend the bulk of our time on social emotional learning. The board has talked throughout the last year about the social and emotional needs of our students. I'd like for you to have an opportunity to hear from our counselors and from our counselor on special assignment and middle school administrator about the programs that they're implementing and what they're seeing with their students. We have Angela Riles and Dana Caitlin from the elementary level. We have Shelley Benson and Chris Inman from secondary, and we have Scott Scaldi from Laguna Middle School who will be sharing information with you. But we are going to start with Joyce Hansen, who's going to give us a little summary of our phased programs in special education.
Good evening, everyone. It's good to see everyone. And it's a pleasure to be here tonight. Thank you for having me. So just real quick reminder that we have implemented in-person instruction since September 8th in student support services. We started with phase 1, which was our more intensive special day classes. Then we moved on in October to phase 2, our less intensive special day classes. And then starting in about mid-November and then through early to mid-December, we had our phase 3 program start across the district. And that was our resource level students. And again, those are all in-person programs. Our phase 1 and phase 2 programs were Monday through Friday, 9 o'clock to 2:30. And their schedule as we roll into Plan B, as we roll into Plan B, their schedule is going to shift a little bit. The amount of time that they're spending in person is going to remain the same, but we're changing it a little bit to align up with the gen ed students that are back on campus. And so roughly the programs will be Monday through Thursday about 8 or 8:15 to 2:30 or 2:20. And then Fridays, they're going to do about 8:15 to 12:45 so that they have the afternoons for staff meetings and planning and working with teams. And then looking at our safety updates for phase 1 and phase 2 and 3, we've been carefully coordinating with our workplace infectious disease prevention coordinator, Holly Warwick, and the public health department, and making sure that we're updating our guidelines and making any changes to those guidelines and notification procedures as they come up, because as you all know, this is, COVID has been very evolving over time. And we have had some of our cohorts that have needed to close. Our special ed team is amazing, and they were able to offer immediate distance learning like the next day when we've had closures in place. We've also been doing weekly, and then we switched to bi-weekly meetings with our LI and MI staff to ensure that they had all of the PPE that they needed and all safety protocols. As we were getting updates on them, they were aware of those. And again, our SPED team has just been absolutely amazing, and we are so grateful to them and the work that they are doing with our students.
Thank you, Joyce, very much. You all might remember at the very beginning of this board meeting, Mr. Black talked about children with smiling faces running onto campuses. That's what we saw in special education too. We saw that when we started phase 1, phase 2, phase 3. It all was very, very positive with the work of just some amazing special educators. So just a little bit about special education. And now we'd like to move on to social and emotional learning across the district. You met Shelley Benson, our school counselor on special assignment, in our last presentation, and she's going to be sharing some information with you again right now. Not sure I see her.
I'm here. I can get the microphone, just not the video.
Okay.
Oh, there we go. Okay. Yeah, hold on. Now I'm allowed. Okay, I'm back. So I really want to just quickly, and not to belabor this, but thank the board for supporting this new position that I'm in. It's really given me an opportunity to look at how we're serving our students, both academically and social, and their social emotional needs. And one of the things that's been very interesting for me to do is work with Laura Storm and her team through Mr. Mayfield to align the social and emotional interventions that we're providing for students with the academic interventions. And so looking really at this multi-tiered system of support, and what are we guaranteeing that all students will receive? What do we know that some students need? And then what do we have a few students who really need more intense interventions. So it's been really nice to be able to look at those structures and really help support the school counselors, school psychs, school nurses, our program specialists, like all these people working directly with students, creating those structures to help them. At the core sort of all of this is our site care teams. So I think, there we go. And we have Angela, are you here? She's gonna speak. We have a number of people coming to speak tonight.
Hi, I'm Angela Riles. I am the part-time school counselor at Delmar Elementary in Morro Bay. And I'm just here to share with you real briefly about our care teams. And they stand for Collaborate, Affirm, Restore, and Educate. And those teams are really have become part of the important piece of mental health support across our sites, brought to us by our wonderful special counselor on special assignment, Shelley Benson. She's been able to help us bring these monthly and bi-monthly meetings to our school sites. And the meetings really revolve around the opportunity for us to communicate as mental health professionals and to talk more with a specific focus on what are the trends and needs of our school site at those specific times of these meetings. And so the members of our team really consist of our school counselors, an administrator, our school nurses, along with our family advocates, our school psychs, program specialists, and then each site kind of adds additional people as needed. And again, during these meetings, not only are we talking about student issues, but we're also talking about bigger global issues that fall within that tiered system of support that Shelley just shared with everybody. And it's been a great opportunity for better communication for all of us that are typically working really hard behind the scenes in these areas of SEL support, but not always having the time or finding the opportunity to communicate with each other for a better, more collaborative approach at that. So that's what the care team meetings look like.
Awesome. Thank you so much. So we have a couple more presenters for you, but I did want to say this is a very grassroots effort. So this next grouping of slides, it has to do with the student wellness surveys that we created just out of a response to know what was going on with our kids. So this started way back in July and August, and we got together and we're like, how are we going to find out what's going on? Like, we're really not going to see them again. Oh my gosh, what are we doing? How do we kind of reinvent ourselves and our services? So we have both a elementary and high school counselor here to present to you guys. So Chris and Dana, you guys want to introduce yourselves, and you can start with the next slide.
Hi, everyone. I'm Chris Inman. I'm the lead counselor at San Luis Obispo High School. I don't know if I can get my camera to turn on. Maybe. Start my video. There we go. Now I can. So when we made these surveys, we did it through Google Forms and we pushed them out as assignments in the Google Classrooms for our students, which we've created by grade level. And we really just wanted to know how they were doing, things they were worried about, what they were excited about, just kind of getting an idea of where they're at, sort of a litmus test. And we really, at the end of each one, we wanted to know what we can do to support students. And we were able to collect some data from their feedback on just some ideas on how we could better support them. So this is just a breakdown from some of the surveys that we took. We did it every 3 weeks in the first semester. And you'll notice that the first couple surveys, you'll see a lot in like the red saying content. And it sort of shifted as people got Zoom fatigue throughout the semester. And in you'll notice there isn't something for week 10 because week 10 was when we did the Youth Truth survey. So we were just collecting data as much as possible throughout the whole first semester and how to support students. And the way we responded, depending on their answers, we would do phone contact to students that were in need. And then we would also email and reach out to set up meetings with students one-on-one, invite parents in. Sometimes we call an SST if we needed more support, or we would do a therapeutic referral to our MFTs. And we also use our Google Classroom not only to push out the surveys, but to respond with different resources and assignments that students can access. We drop in the TNN, weekly Wellness Wednesdays. There's just a whole, I think the Google Classroom has probably been one of the biggest things for us to be able to keep in contact with students regularly.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Dana Catlin. I'm not able to get my camera on. I am 2 days a week. There it goes. I am 2 days a week at Monarch Grove and Los Osos and 2 days a week at Sinsheimer and San Luis. And coming back to school, all the counselors got together because we felt like we needed to know what was going on with our families, what was going on with our kids. And so we created a survey to talk to parents, to open the door, to, make them feel welcome from the get-go. But we also knew that our parents were being overwhelmed with information and requests and parent squares and all of that. So we created a 6-question survey just to try and take the pulse, see what was going on. The last question, of course, was, would you like contact from your school counselor? So we first asked them about their past experience during distance learning. And what we've consistently heard over time is high levels of frustration, had tears, but got through it. And then 18% of our parents said it went well. So clearly the temperature of the group was a little rough. And so 45% of our respondents asked for and received contact from the school counselor. And that could have been email, it could have been phone call. For me, it was mostly phone calls. And so as we talked to families, as we turned the data, 50% of our families had experienced unexpected financial, family, or other stressors during COVID. So part of me kind of felt like that was almost pretty good. I felt like it could have been higher. So, and 50% of our parents reported concern about their child's level of anger, frustration, anxiety, or emotionality related to distance learning. And that one I felt was a little bit low. In talking with parents and interacting with parents, I've been doing that more than ever before. A lot of parent coaching because a lot of parents didn't want their kids on Zoom more. And so I've been doing more coaching and that kind of thing. That's been the biggest thing, is they're worried about their kids' mental health and emotionality being the biggest concern. So we provided individual and or group counseling, parent coaching, outside agency referrals, We also did internet and tech resources, since everybody seems to be on internet and tech now. That's serviceable to everyone. We had some great parenting classes that were online. And therapeutic recommendations, whether it was with our MFTIs or outside. And we also, coordinated with our family support, our family advocates for support. So that's kind of, what we did with the surveys. It was a great way to open the door. We did do another one in January, and our response level was lower, definitely a bit lower, as families just get kind of surveyed out. But it was a really nice way to figure out what was going on with their families and offer support in a really personal way.
Thank you. Yeah. So I wanted to include this in here. This is a little more formalized screener that is part of the FastBridge assessments that Laura and her team are working on through math and reading. I believe up through the 9th grade even. We also had the opportunity to screen our students for social, academic, and emotional behavior ratings. And this is a self-screener. So we did give parents the option to opt out. We had about 17 kids through the whole district that decided they didn't want to do it. And we are just now still getting this information back. So we've spent the month of February working with schools, having them, helping them to have their students take this screener. Our care teams will evaluate the information once we get it all back. It's at the very beginning stages, so I'd say it's definitely a preliminary tool to sort of decide how we can move forward, how we best serve our students through the rest of this year. Also, how we can set things up for next year so we can start to determine what their needs are. So our care teams will really play an important role in looking at that information and working with teachers to understand the information. I did work with our school counselors to develop a response matrix. So if you guys want to look at that in detail later, we do have that there. So based on the score they get on this screener, then what intervention would we provide? So obviously we'll look at each child individually, but there are some raw scores that indicate maybe a risk for some social behaviors or some emotional behaviors. And I think if we go to the next slide, you can kind of see more of the official. So this is from FastBridge, and it shows what they're looking at. So there's just 3 categories: social, academic, and emotional. And each area has a score associated with it, and that's what you would find on that response matrix. To this point, we've only done the MySavers, which is the student self-rating. So it's really just how they feel about their skills in these areas. Elementary teachers will be talking with parents at their conferences about this. And again, we'll be working through the care teams to look at it. We hope to add in the Savers, and that's where the teachers look at that and kind of rate their students and screen their students for some of these behaviors. And then the 2 go together to make a score. But like I said, we're at the very beginning of this. We have the potential of doing this 3 times a year through the FastBridge window. So again, aligning, how we're intervening with MTSS and the academic interventions. So just wanted to make sure you guys knew what that was. And now we have Scott and Denise.
Hi there. My name is Scott Scaldi. I'm the assistant principal at Laguna Middle School, and Denise Baca from Los Osos Middle School. She and I are sharing this slide. And so I'll go first and then I'll turn it over to her. So on the right-hand side of the slide, it talks a little bit about a practice we have at Laguna Middle School. We owe this to our counselor on special assignment. So Shelley Benson shares lots of resources with us, and this is one that we really grabbed onto. So these 6 sustainable happiness skills come to us from a doctor out of Cal, Dr. Thomas, the director of the Greater Good Science Center from Cal Berkeley. And they basically have studied the brain science, especially of adolescents, and how practices that you can train your brain to be better to cultivate your emotional wellness. And so we opened up with a video from her and her team about the brain chemistry. And then we've moved through some of our practices. We haven't even completed them all. And we do these in our Monday morning advisory with all of our students and staff. It's been pretty powerful. One of the first ones we've done is mindfulness, and we do 2 minutes of meditation every Monday school-wide. One advisory, I left it out, and I got multiple emails from students and staff members saying, what the heck? Where's our 2 minutes of mindfulness? And so it's been really embraced and impactful for our student body and for our staff. So we've rolled them out over the weeks on Mondays, and we're really happy with it. We're grateful that Shelley was able to share this with us, and we're super happy with the outcomes we've seen thus far. We feel strongly that our kids are understanding that 90% of their happiness and emotional well-being can be controlled by them if they learn and practice these skills. So we're really grateful and we're happy, and I just wanted to share that in our meeting. Thank you. Denise?
Thank you. I'm Denise Baca, and I'm the school counselor at Los Osos Middle School. And yeah, so pretty early on, we at the admin and myself got together, and we really wanted to find a way to support our staff with the stress of everything that's been going on. So we decided to develop what we called Wellness Wednesdays. And so every week we're pushing out something in the area of mindfulness or calming strategies, stress management, sometimes just a relaxation, maybe a video where it's just a sound and a peaceful scene. And then, of course, we thought it was important to add humor as well, because we know how important humor is for our physiology and getting those neurotransmitters firing. And then I got the idea that I wanted to really do something for students. So I grabbed onto Google Classroom and started pushing out material for students on a weekly basis, with a mental health focus, really focusing on those important coping strategies, stress management strategies, and encompassing mindfulness and gratitude and self-compassion. And I always add a video to go with these different strategies that I'm pushing out, because I feel like the videos really help get the message to kids. So that's been one of my, I feel selfish because when I get these messages from kids, it just totally makes my day. And these are some of the messages that I've received from students, and they still keep coming, and I answer everyone, and we have a little conversation. And that's the other piece. When I'm pushing this out, it's I send a message, and it feels to me like I'm with all of my students, but it feels like I'm with one student, and I'm having that counseling moment where I can have just a one-on-one talk with them, and then I'll push out the video. And these are just, it helped me become more calm. Thank you. This worked well for me. So that's just the icing on the cake for me. Thank you.
Thank you guys very much. Thank you. You can see great ideas across levels with our counselors. Now let's look a little bit of data. So when we talk about our school counselors that we have across the district, Shelley and I kind of compiled a little bit of data to show you some things about their work. So in 5 months, our 14 school counselors have recorded over 5,000 individual student contacts. Obviously, that's virtual, but it's face-to-face contact on a screen. They've conducted over 170 student study team meetings with 45 resulting in referral for assessment. We have 2 PEI counselors, one at Laguna, one at Los Osos Middle School, and they are supporting 45 middle school students. And then we have 11 therapists throughout the district who are supporting 70 students as well. Our school counselors really take their work to heart. They look at the needs of their students. And right now they're saying that they're referring students to therapeutic interventions most for things like motivation, stress, family trauma, depression, anxiety. You can see the list there. But again, these are things that our school counselors are learning about their students and then finding therapeutic supports for them when needed. And then finally, this data. This is something that we look at annually, and I think it's safe to say that that counselor contacts sometimes are going to be a little bit different during closure. You'll see over towards the left, all January 2021, and then all February 2020. The blue column is last year's counselor contact by February, and we gathered data this year in January. So the white column on the very far left is all counselor contact by January. If you look at the secondary, you're going to see very similar numbers, and sometimes even a little bit higher in 21 than 20. Elementary, a little bit lower in some cases this year. I think you heard our elementary counselors, and if you've spoken with them outside of this meeting, you'll know that some of the parents are, our counselors are working with parents, maybe not their child. Parents are worried a little bit about screen time. It's a little bit harder to connect with an elementary student when you're talking about virtually. So you might see a little bit higher numbers. I don't think that says anything about the contacts that our counselors have had overall with students, the second steps curriculums that they're doing in classroom, and again, the work that they're doing with parents. On the far right, I think you know that our counselors and the board is also looking for the subgroup populations that we are hitting with all of our work. We talked about it in our 4-year plans. How are we hitting those first gen kids? This data right here tells you by school the percentage of our subgroup populations that have been contacted by their counselor this year. Oh, one more. Shelley, I think you're going to talk about data and our family advocates.
Yes, and so we didn't want to, we wanted to be sure to include our family advocates in our discussions about social and emotional health and learning. They fit hand in glove with all the services that we are providing, and they've been an amazing addition. Really just meeting the kids and families in those like immediate needs of like housing and food and clothing and oh my gosh, connecting them to legal services, to therapeutic services. These are just some incredible people in our district. The numbers are there. They've helped over 400 families, and there's so many incredible and heart-touching, heartwarming stories out there with the work that these family advocates are doing. And it's funny because I don't remember when they came around, but I can't imagine working without them now. They really meet the immediate needs of our students and serve on our care teams and are just incredible people. So we're so glad to have them be a part of our team when we're looking at what kids need. Let's see.
And then Shelley, a little bit about next steps. So we've talked about some of the, highlighted some of the programs that we have throughout the district, the contacts we're making with students. How would you describe next steps in the area of SEL?
So it's interesting because this presentation has grown from when we were supposed to initially present it, and now all these things are starting to happen, especially with kids returning to campus. So you've heard a little bit about some mindfulness exercises that are going on. There are more than what you've heard about. I really think that meeting with Common Ground Task Force, that was a big discussion that we learned was very important across our community. And so you're going to start to see more and more of that implemented district-wide. We're creating resources for counselors, for teachers. Our school nurses have been instrumental in helping with the mindfulness exercises, especially across our elementary schools. We'll be returning to in-person, so we're so excited about that. We're working with the agencies that provide our MFTs, and they're under similar guidelines that as we are, but that differs a little. So we're working with them to find that. We're also finding, just silver lining. Some of the kids, especially at the secondary level, are enjoying the virtual counseling, and how do we balance that? How do we look at that and keep that virtual going for the kid who wants to continue to see that person virtually, but then we also want to provide the in-person services. We'll be looking at the My Savers data. So I'll be supporting the care teams and how do we use that information to inform our tier 1 interventions, and then also meet the kids at their tier 2 and tier 3 needs. Our school counselors have done incredible professional development for our staff on some trauma-informed practices, what to look for in kids as they return to campus. Their presentations have been absolutely incredible. I know our secondaries go next week, and the elementary presentations were amazing and very well received. So I think that is a huge kudos goes out to all those PPS counselors we have in our district. And they've really stepped up and really become leaders through this whole school closure. We want to continue to create a comprehensive school counseling program. So how do we align our social and emotional lessons, really PK through 12? We want to look at that. I'm working with a group of sort of leader counselors from different levels, and we're looking at how we implement a district-wide counseling calendar, how we create small group norms so that we are all speaking the same language and it makes sense to kids. With the ultimate goal that this would be a fully embedded district-wide SEL. SEL, you know, there's the 5 competencies. They're listed there for you, but I really think that the goal is to provide the social connection and create concrete supports that kids know they can depend on. Because I think when you look at SEL, you really want, our goal, I believe, should be that kids understand their emotions, they're able to set and achieve goals, they feel and show empathy for others, they are able to establish and maintain healthy relationships, and that they make responsible decisions. So in everything from academic planning to, you know, who they're going to hang out with on the weekend, you know, I think as a district, that's our goal. We want to, you know, sort of usher kids into the real world with those skills. So connecting kids back to school is going to be a big focus of the next month. So and beyond through the rest of the school year. So we have some specific things that we're working with elementary schools on and looking at rebuilding community lessons that we've provided, continuing to focus on student well-being and mental health at the middle school level, and then really infusing SEL into everything we do at the secondary through school-wide activities and the like. So it's a big push, but I mean, I'm so pleased that the spotlight is shining on all this, because I think it's really what kids need. And, you know, our goal is ultimately to reach all students, you know, and yeah, so thank you all for supporting us in that, because we've known forever how important it is. We're happy to all be here and getting to share this with you guys. So thanks very much.
Thank you, Shelley, and thank you to the rest of the team. I think it was important to hear from the people who are providing the service. So any questions from the board, Mr. Unger?
Well, first, although this is not an action item, I will go to the public to see if there's anyone from the public who would like to comment on this item. I see the name Aaron here.
Hi.
So Aaron.
Yeah, my last name is Helfman.
Okay,
It's
Aaron,
like
and your 3 minutes are
with an
starting
H.
now.
Okay. First of all, thank you to Diane and Joyce and Shelley and everybody else who talked. I'm sorry, I don't remember everybody's name. I wanted to touch on something that has been, and it relates to this, but it's been a concern for several meetings because I've heard other parents kind of ask this question, but for the VLP students, we have these kids who are remaining in distance learning, not through choice, but sometimes through need. And I feel like, sorry, I have a ton of notes and I can't read what I'm supposed to say here. I haven't heard anybody kind of responding to what about these kids that are still remaining in the VLP, because I know there's been lots of comments about kids aren't learning well online, kids are lonely, they're depressed. And as I'm just going to echo kind of what has been said tonight, and that these kids need social connections, that we know, particularly at the elementary level, this is a hard thing to achieve, I realize. We've had, general struggles like everybody else, but our kids are still not going back, and they're also seeing that their peers are going to be returning. And it is very difficult. So I'm just kind of wanting some thoughts out there, and maybe it's just been an oversight, but what are some of these things specific to the VLP that maybe we could foster some, kind of just thinking proactively instead of reactively. And I know Diane very well, and she's great.
Oh.
And I'm sure everybody else is great. I know Joyce. And so I'm just kind of wanting some thought out there, and maybe have there been ideas, or I know VLP is sort of separate, but they're part of the district. So it's a concern.
It's good to see you. Thank you for
Hi.
asking your question, Erin. Very, very good to see you. We have, and Shelley and any other counselor can add in, but I really do think you bring up a really important topic. When we talked about VLP at the beginning of the year, we wanted those children, while they were in a VLP program, we wanted them to have access to their home school counselor, right? That's the counselor they know, that's the programs that they know. So that was our plan. I'm afraid I can't speak really specifically about overt outreach that they've done, but I really appreciate you bringing it up as an issue. I really do. I
mean, and our girls are doing great, but I mean, these we still have 14 or 15 weeks. And then with I know a lot of people, a lot of schools, everybody's very excited for kids to go back. And I'm happy for those that feel safe going back and don't have risk health conditions. But I'm just curious.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thanks, Erin. I'm going to I think Diane talked a little bit about that. I'm going to let Diane add any more comments, but we appreciate your time, and your time is up. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. And like I said, definitely all of our VLP children are still aligned to their home counselor. And we thought that was important. It's the counselor they know, it's the programs they know, and they are welcome in the small groups. They are welcome in any of the interventions we have. I don't know, Shelley, if you have any perspective from the high school level and a VLP student.
I think I would just echo what you're saying. I don't see the Google Classroom, all the online stuff, the Zoom appointments, the Zoom hours, all of these multitude of things that that have come out of school being closed. I don't see those things going away, so I think it would be good for us to keep going with those. I think that's the plan, but then also to specifically reach out to our students who remain in VLP or distance learning even. I mean, we're going to have kids at all kinds of different levels. So I think that's a really good reminder for us to keep our eye on that ball.
Thank you. Thank you.
Is there anybody else from the public? Okay, no more public comment. I'll bring it back to the board. Board members, do you have comments or questions? Dr. Eisendrath Rogers.
I am just find it so staggering, the number of students that you were working with, 5,000 individual student contacts. I mean, I had a sense of how difficult it was for the students and the help that they needed, but this is just, it's just incredible. And I can't thank you enough. I think of what were the alternatives for these students, and there probably weren't any alternatives, and you were there for them. And I'm very touched by the way you touch these students' lives. So thank you so much.
Other questions or comments? Mr. Buckman.
I have to echo what Dr. Rogers said. This is just awe-inspiring, the amount of outreach you've done, and then the amount of response that you've given. Your presentation did spark a few questions for me. I'm particularly interested in how we're monitoring or how we're doing when we monitor attendance, and if there's been any, well, there used to be consequences for being truant. How are we dealing with that?
I can tell you that each of the sites, elementary, middle, and high, have a process in order and tracking where they contact parents when the students aren't participating. You know, certainly we have a letter system, but I think more important is the administrator contact, the secretary contact, and then ultimately the counselor contact, you know, talking to them about getting on their Zooms, how they can be supported, what other things that they need to make it seamless for them. I don't know if that answers your question, Mr. Buckman.
No.
Yep.
Thank you very much. I also have a question. So I know from personal experience, I know we have not a lot of Black students in the district, but the more I'm reading, we know that there's more crisis with male Black students and more suicide. And so maybe not tonight, but if I could get some information. And I know when we have such a small group, we're worried about being able to identify kids. So, but if I could get some information that I would appreciate it. Sorry, one more. I'm good. I appreciate all the work you're doing. Thank you.
Thank you.
So, Mrs. Frost, I heard Mr. Buckman make a request for information. Is that something the rest of the board would like to see? I see Mrs. Dobler-Drew. Is this information that can be easily gotten? Because if it isn't, then I don't see a quorum of the board supporting that request for information,
Could be Friday night.
that specific request, unless the board wants to change their mind. But I saw Mrs. Dobler-Drew and Mr. Buckman requesting information specifically on our Black students. Dr. Prater?
Yeah, what I would like to echo is we will be providing this information in the board strategic session material. So you will be getting this information around student wellness under the theme of culture of care. So I'll work with Mrs. Frost and Ms. Benson and making sure we gather that information, and we'll include it in the work that we're doing leading up through to the approval of the LCAP and the budget for the upcoming year, along with board priorities.
Okay, great. Other board members? Mrs. Frame.
Thank you, Diane, and thank you everyone for this great presentation. A couple of questions that I had. One was for the elementary survey when it said 552 respondents. Is that out of the entire elementary student population? Okay.
It was of the entire parent population. So it went out to all of our schools, and that was the response we got on the September one. I don't have the numbers right now for the January one, but yes.
Okay. The other thing is I'm hoping that for this tool, the Sabers, I don't know if I'm saying it correctly, is it that am I correct that you said that teachers would be administering and it's kind of a short little information? I'm curious if we can get some kind of feedback loop from teachers as to how they view that tool, how effective they see it is, you know, the impact, but including teachers in that kind of loop as to how effective that tool is.
Absolutely. This is the, yeah.
If we could go back to slide, where is it? And slide 20.
Okay, help me. Is that, which one is slide 20?
It's the one by the numbers. Sorry.
Yes, yes.
Okay. So I'm confused about this only because when I'm looking at for the months, it'll say, let's say Baywood, 116, and February it's 145. And then I look across EL, Hispanic, White, SED, Special Ed. Are those discrete groups? Are they, because the numbers don't add up.
They don't add up because a student can be in more than one group. A child can be in the SPED group and the Hispanic, or SPED and EL. So no, they don't add up. But I do
Look at my
think
math. So then, so the total number of the contacts then that these counselors have been doing is that 116?
So if we're talking about Baywood, yeah, that would be 116 this year through January, and last year it was right around 145, maybe
Oh, this
1
is
month
great.
later. So we've had a slight decrease at Baywood, but then again, as you read across, you'll see the subgroup populations who have been in some kind of contact with their counselor. And again, we're, you know, elementary is a little bit different than middle and high school. Our middle and high school kids are a little bit more amenable to, you know, computer, video, talking to their counselor that way, reaching out.
No, Diane, I think this is great. The only thing when I was looking at this data, I'm sorry, is are we able to, if we look at the numbers and some sites clearly are more impacted than others, or are we looking at reallocating staff based on these numbers, or that was, I guess, the question I had.
Yeah, no, it's a good question. We are looking at how we allocate our counseling FTE, our, you know, our full-time educators or equivalents. We're looking at how we do that. Over the years, we have looked at Title I and non-Title I elementary schools, and then decided, does a Title I get a little bit more school counselor? Does a Title I get a little bit more MFT? This year, we're going to, you know, dig a little bit deeper, look at our, you know, more than just our SED numbers, look at our students with disabilities on the campuses, EL, that kind of thing. Look at the whole number of students on that campus. So yes, we are kind of diving deep into how we are allocating counselors in our district, especially at the elementary level.
Because before, has it been on number, and now I guess what I'm asking, is it more going to be need-based, is I think what you're referring to when you're looking at Title I schools?
I am. So yes, need-based is the Title I look that we have done in years past. A Title I elementary school would have a 0.5 counselor, a non-Title I elementary school would have a 0.4. And that was just what we looked at. That was the information that we used. But there's so much more than just Title I or non-Title I. Like, how much higher are you in your Title I status? What other kind of subgroup populations that need more attention from a counselor are on a campus? So we're going to look at a few more variables this year as we're considering our counselor allocation.
Well, Diane, again, I want to thank you for this great presentation. And it's fabulous. It's just a few questions, but thank you so much for the work that the counselors are doing. It's so important, and for both staff and for our students. It's really great job. So thank you.
Thank you.
I do have a question for you. I heard you ask for information about, I think, whether the teachers think this is an effective, is that what you were kind of asking? Use of their time? Okay, yeah, because I wasn't sure if we were asking for additional information. I'm trying to be. Thank you. Okay, got it. Any other board comments? I'm not seeing any, but I do want to comment too a little bit. Oh, I'm sorry, Mrs. Roger. You're right. Sometimes I don't see your hand. I apologize.
It's okay. Well, I'm really impressed with this presentation. It's heartwarming to me. I'm so glad that, you know, over the years we've been able to maintain our elementary counseling, because I think it's so important. And I'm deeply appreciative of all of the work that all of our counselors and our mental health providers do. I had kind of been thinking, well, I know I'm hearing from parents, I know that children are suffering in distance learning, and I think it will be much improved when we do go back to school and teachers can get eyes on kids, because they really, have a sense of when a child is hurting. A teacher can pick up on that and point them in the right direction to get some help. But it's astounding the amount of work that's been done while we've been in distance learning. And I had no idea that all of this outreach was going on. I'm really proud of our district for taking the initiative and finding a way to do this and to help families and students, through this really rough period that we hopefully are coming out of sometime soon. The work that counselors do, it's God's work. I mean, I really have such great appreciation for people who work with kids, and to be able to make a child's life improved by working with them has got to be very, very gratifying to you as professionals. So I just want to thank you. I want to thank you for this presentation and for your hard work.
Mrs. Sheffer?
I would just add very briefly that I think that it's important, especially for the public, to realize that we are a fortunate district. There are many, and I don't know whether it's the majority, Diane or Dr. Prater, maybe someone can set me straight, but of districts no longer have elementary counseling. It is a rarity that this district has held on to. It has been cut back over the years out of necessity for our budget. But it has been a strong value of this board and previous boards to maintain a level of counseling at the elementary level. And there are many, many districts throughout the state, and I know nationwide, that have no elementary counseling whatsoever. So I just wanted to point that out primarily to members of the public. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. I'm not seeing anyone else. I just would like to add some of just talk a little bit about some of the great work our elementary schools are doing as well. And I'm particularly, I don't want to slight anybody, but I'm particularly aware of what's going on at Del Mar, for example, and their work toward mindfulness. They've been working on this for several years now. It's a very exciting thing that they're doing, and I see a lot of that working its way up through the middle school at Los Osos Middle School. When I was there last week, meeting with Mrs. Gould, she showed me the labyrinth, for example, that you guys have built over there, and the mindfulness walk that you have. I know that Monarch is working hard with their. I'm not even sure what it's called. The work they're doing with Covey and those folks to present different things to the students, and they're following up with it every week for virtual learning. And I know our other elementary schools are doing it as well, but those kinds of things we've got to be able to start in our elementary schools, and then it will carry through as well to our middle and high schools. So as I think the board has suggested, this is something that we as a board have valued for a very long time. I know Mrs. Roger, I think that was one of the things when you ran for Board of Education that was very, very important to you, and something that you've talked a lot about and continue to talk about. And it's nice to see that some of those things that we've thought about for a long time are bearing fruit. And obviously we have a lot more work to do. I think as everybody's talking about, our first order of business when we return to schools is making sure that our kids are safe and working on their social, emotional needs and academics. But clearly we have a lot of work to do, just getting kids back in school and feeling that school experience. So thank you all so much on behalf of the board. I really appreciate it. We need to move on to item 9.04. This is an action item. It's approve increases to certificated substitute salary schedule. And this will be presented by Mrs. Newland. Kristen, are you there? I see you there.
I am
Okay.
here. So this item is about our certificated substitutes. As you may know, it has been challenging for all districts in this county to get substitutes. And we have added a lot of pod leaders, which has been fantastic. But some of our substitutes have gone to be pod leaders. And we would like to encourage our substitutes to come back to substitute teaching if they are interested in doing that, and to really honor and reward those substitutes that are willing to work for us every single day. So this proposal is for two types of substitutes. One would be a substitute that's willing to work every single day from now until the end of the year, wherever we need them in general education. And if they would be willing to do that, then we would pay them $175 a day. The second is for a substitute who is willing to work anywhere we put them, anywhere we have an opening, but is also willing to do special education, which can be a little bit more challenging assignment. And for that position, we're recommending that we pay them $200 a day. So this would be a temporary increase from now until the end of the year, and then it can be revisited for next year. But this is our proposal to the board that we have analyzed, and we hope it will help us when we reopen to have really solid substitutes in place.
This is an action item, so I'm going to go to the public to see if there is any public comment on this item. And seeing none, I'm going to bring it back to the board. Is there any discussion from the board, or would someone like to make a motion on this item? Mr. Buckman?
Yeah, I'd like to make a motion to accept the recommendation.
We have a motion by Mr. Buckman and a second by Mrs. Frame. Any further discussion from the board on this item? Seeing none, I'll bring it back to a vote. Mr. Buckman?
Yes.
Mrs. Frame? Mrs. Dobler-Drew?
Yes.
Dr. Eisendrath Rogers?
Yes.
Mrs. Rogers?
Yes.
Mrs. Sheffer?
Yes.
And I'm a yes. Motion carries 7-0.
Thank you.
We need to move on to item 9.05, executive summary of proposed new secondary courses. This will be presented by Mrs. McGrath.
Yes, thank you. Annually, we bring forward new proposed secondary courses. These would be courses for our middle schools or high schools. And they go through a process of teachers initiating the courses, talking to their site administrators, and then having a discussion with the other middle school or high school in order to get a consensus. You'll see kind of a range of courses this year, a lot of bilingual courses, which are great to see. Especially as, Pacheco's being such a popular program and the addition of Baywood, great to see these bilingual opportunities working up through our school district. You'll see lots of CTE courses here that are helping either to enhance current pathways or to create some cleanup or to help still modernize, which is great for CTE. You'll also see some great additional offerings for AP courses as well, with AP Biology and Environmental Science. So this evening, this is an action item. I am happy to answer any questions and would love to get your approval for these new proposed courses.
Dr. Eisendrath Rogers, I believe we do have a written comment, and then I'll go to the public to see if there's anyone who'd like to add to this.
We do have a comment from Grace Singh. I am a parent of a 6th grader at Teach Elementary and a 9th grader at SLO High, and volunteer as co-president of Black and Gold Boosters at SLO High. Professionally, I'm a conductor with the SLO Youth Symphony and a violinist with the SLO Symphony. I am writing to thank you for adding AP Music Theory to the list of secondary new courses for 2021-22 to provide more opportunities in the visual and performing arts curriculum. I am familiar with the AP Music Theory as I use some concepts in private violin lessons for secondary school students. I would like to request that the prerequisites for AP Music Theory be expanded from the current list of, quote, at least one of the following: wind ensemble honors, jazz band honors. The recommended prerequisites from the College Board website is stated, quote, ability to read and write musical notation and basic voice or instrument performance skills, end quote. Is there a way that music students could qualify based on a short exam, audition, or recommendation? This would open the class to advanced string instrument students from the Slow You Symphony, as well as advanced piano and voice students. Thank you for your support of arts education for our students.
And if I could just quickly comment, Mr. Unger, we did
Yes,
hear.
please, go ahead.
Okay, great. We did hear some feedback, and I actually went ahead and ran those ideas back by our high school administrators, and they agreed that that was a really good addition there. So you'll see that adjustment made within the courses. It also says teacher approval needed if musical experiences are outside the district offered coursework, which I think is a great idea because you can have musical experiences from a variety of places. And you would just need to prove a certain level of competency if it was outside of district courses. So just to let you know that's been addressed.
So has it been addressed in the descriptions of the
Yes, you'll
that
find
we'll
it
be
in the
voting on this
attached
evening?
document that you're looking at today. So
Okay.
with your approval, that adjustment is made.
Okay. Is there anybody from the public who would like to address the board on this item? Seeing no one, I'll bring it back to the board for board discussion. Is there any board comment or discussion on this item? Mrs. Frame?
Sorry.
No.
Ms. McGrath, a couple of questions. And you'll have to tell me the process. Are these courses, are they going to be offered at both all the secondary sites? I mean, how is it determined where the courses are offered?
Yeah, so the process begins by one school having an interest. So let's say, for example, Morro Bay High School said, we're really interested in offering an AP music theory class. Then Morro Bay High School would speak to Slow High and say, hey, how does that sound? Let's look at this course and does it work for you as well?
Mm-hmm.
So both corresponding school sites have to say, great with us.
Mm-hmm.
Then once there's that agreement, then the course goes through for administrative approval and analysis. And then the next step, which is probably one of the most important steps, is student interest. So that adds it into the course catalog, so to speak, that puts it out, and then you see how much student interest is. So it could be that if there's very limited student interest, that the course is not offered, or it could be that it's offered every other year. For example, right on a music theory, you might want to offer that every other year so that you can wait for students to kind of pile up in order to have enough to offer it. We of course don't have the luxury of, let's say, 3 kids are interested in always offering a course, but when there's student interest, then they look to see how that course can be offered and how it fits in the schedule. And so with think about the middle school courses like the bilingual courses. We have some bilingual courses already offered at Laguna because of Pacheco. So at Loams, they'll have to see, is there enough interest? Is there enough students to make up that course? Or do they need to wait for the students that are going through Baywood to create even more bilingual students to enter Loams? Does that help?
Yeah. And that was my other question is for the bilingual biliterate classes. One of the things I noticed is that this was by teacher recommendation. And so most of the courses are, those advanced courses have been, like the math or English have been tested in. So I guess the question is this in alignment with prior practice that we've done? And then the second part of this question is, would we have, what would be projected enrollment of EOs and current ELs or past ELs that would take this class? Do we
Great. So a
have
few
that?
different questions there. So on your first question, it would be, wait, I just forgot your first question. Sorry. The
Oh.
second question was about percentages of EOs and ELs.
Yeah.
So I looked at just current, Mr. Scaldi pulled current students in the current 7th grade bilingual history course and 8th grade bilingual course. There's more ELs and RFEPs in there than EOs, but you'll see it's about a 60-ish, 40-ish split there. So you'll see some that were bilingual and biliterate native speakers, and some that went through the system, or some that came from other programs or something that created a bilingual student that then is taking that course. And then help me remember, sorry, I forgot that first one.
Oh, about the teacher recommendation, because I know I've heard from teachers about, they don't really want to get into that. And so, and we have processes in place for some of our other courses. So how do you address that?
Right, so let me tell you a few different things. One would be that at a high school level, students taking honors and AP courses are open for when a student expresses an interest, and they can, as long as they meet the prerequisites, then they can sign up for those courses. The only advanced course where you need to pass a certain level of test would be into the combined courses at the middle school level for math. So when students want to take a year and a half worth of math, kind of squished into 1 year, then when Common Core Standards came along, it kind of changed that pattern and said that you need some sort of way to measure students that are needing that type of advanced work. So we have a small percentage of students that do take those advanced courses. And the teacher approval part is you're right. Sometimes that can put people. I love this. Sometimes people, it can put people in an awkward. Right. Exactly. Yeah. But the a teacher approval, for example, like in the AP Music Theory, is maybe a good example. So the AP Music Theory teacher, if a student came to the teacher and said, I've been taking violin for 5 years, and I would love to show that I can read and write musical notation, then they would just do a short way to demonstrate that and say, great, perfect for this class.
And then my final question is the one about the intensive reading and math connects course. So if students take this course, are they giving up an elective?
In our current model, yes.
Okay. And then, so I guess it's a broader question, and maybe, and I don't know if it's answerable, but for our courses like this that we've had in the past, what has been the trajectory path for kids taking those courses up into the high school? I mean, do we have, I guess, evidence that these courses are helping these students kind of move up into, or I guess?
Yeah, I think the evidence that you'll find is that it's helping them succeed in their current courses, increasing their reading levels, increasing their math standards in their current courses, and their ability to pass and learn and be successful in their current courses. Whether that puts them on a trajectory to be in an advanced course in high school, no, there's not data that shows that they go from, think about if if those courses are great for you, then you're already struggling at that grade level in those standards, right? And in operating at that grade level. So then to say, if I went from an 8th grade course where I needed additional reading and math help to then an advanced course the next year in 9th grade would be quite a leap.
Okay. Okay.
And that was exactly the question I was going to ask. Are there any other questions from board members? This is an action item, so would someone like to make a motion on this item? Mrs. Sheffer,
I would,
motion by Mrs.
yeah, I would move that that we accept the secondary new and modified courses as presented.
I'll second.
And second by Dr. Eisendrath Rogers. We have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion on the item? Okay, so the motion is to approve the new secondary courses. Mrs. Sheffer,
Yes.
Mrs. Frame? Sorry. Dr. Eisenrath Rogers? Mrs. Roger?
Yes.
Mrs. Dobler-Drew?
Yes.
Mr. Buckman?
Yes.
And I'm a yes. The motion carries 7-0. We'll move on to item 9.06, completion of the CSBA delegate assembly ballot. Dr. Prater.
Yes, as the board knows, we're very active in the California School Boards Association, especially with the delegate assembly, which is our region 9C. And we have our own Mr. Buckman, who is a delegate a member, and his term is expiring in 2022. And you actually there's one person to vote for tonight, if you're willing to do so, and that's Vicky Mayer from Lucia Mar. And so she's the sole candidate for this particular selection. So, Mr. Buckman.
Yeah, thanks, Dr. Prater. Thanks, Chris.
Are you thinking of making a motion here, Mark? Let me go to the public first because it's an action item. Is there anybody from the public that would like to comment on this? Okay, seeing no one, now I'll bring it back. Is there any, Mr. Buckman? Thank you.
Yeah, I know there's only one candidate, but I thought I'd mention I've worked with Vicky as she's been the other delegate from Region 9, and she's wonderful, and she's really shown a lot of effort to connect the local school boards with CSBA. So if there'd been somebody else, I'd probably still make this motion, but I'd like us to go ahead and nominate Vicky for this position.
And usually I try not to do the seconds for the motions, but I'm going to second this. My involvement, of course, with CSBA has been long and extensive, and I'm actually a delegate for life as long as I'm on the school board. And I have seen Mrs. Maher in action, and I'm impressed with her commitment to education and to really working with our local school districts. Is there anybody else who has comments on the board? Seeing none, I'll bring it back. Mr. Buckman? Ms. Dobler-Drew?
Yes.
Dr. Eisenrath Rogers? Yes. Ms. Frame? Mrs. Roger?
Yes.
Mrs. Sheffer?
Yes.
And I'm a yes. Motion carries 7-0. Let's move to the first readings of proposals to revision. We'll start with proposal to revision to board policy 0430, comprehensive local plan for special education. And this is a first reading.
Yes, sir. Thanks. This is 0430. You will notice the red additions here from legal, and this has gone through our process of going through directors for review as well as your board subcommittee. This is first reading, so I would recommend bringing it back to second.
Okay. And I'll just go to the public and see if there's anyone from the public who would like to comment on this. And seeing no one, I'll bring it back. Is the board in agreement that we bring this back for a second reading? Okay, we'll bring this back for a second reading. Item number 9.08, proposed revision to board policy 4113, assignment. Mrs. McGrath. I almost called you Dr. McGrath. We'll get you there.
Great.
We'll get you there,
Thank
Kim.
you. Foreshadowing.
One of these days, soon.
I sure hope so. Certificated personnel, you will see the red updates here. This has gone through your process as well, and the subcommittee is great at kind of clearing things up, so you can see that some have just moved around, as well as some deletions on the back and legal updates there in red. Again, a first reading, I would recommend bringing it back for a second.
Okay, and I'll take it to the public. Is there anyone from the public who would like to address the board on this? Seeing no one, I'll come back to the board for a consensus. Is there a consensus that we bring this back for a second reading? Looks like we're good with that. So we'll bring 9.08 back for a second reading. 9.09, proposed revisions to board policy 5116.1, interdistrict open enrollment. First reading, Mrs. McGrath.
Yes, thank you. You can see a lot of legal updates here on this policy. This is an annual policy that we should bring back to review. So, updates will continue to happen, but this talks about enrollment, and then it talks about the exceptions and really the prioritization that should happen in unique circumstances. I would recommend bringing this back for a second reading as well.
Okay. So I'll take this to the public. Is there any public comment on proposed revisions to board policy 5116.1, interdistrict open enrollment? No one from the public. I'll bring it back to the board. Is again the board's consensus that we bring this back for a second reading? Yes? Everybody good with that? Okay. 9.10, proposed revisions to board policy 5154.5, mental health, first reading. Ms. McGrath?
Yeah, a timely new board policy, especially with our presentations today. But you can see this is within student mental health, a new policy. So lots of additions there. You can see some additions here from your subcommittee, really kind of honoring that we also have MFTs and MFTIs that support mental health of our students as well. I would recommend bringing this back for a second reading.
Okay, again, I'll take this to the public. Is there anyone from the public who would like to address the board on this item? Seeing no one, I'll bring it back. Board, is it the board's consensus that we bring this back for a second reading? Okay, we'll bring 9.10 back for a second reading. 9.11, proposed revisions to board policy 6146.1, high school graduation requirements, first reading.
Yes, thank you. You can notice some suggestions here like college and career readiness and some additional information at the bottom that, a change from foreign language to world language, that kind of thing. But I do want to bring your attention to the credit requirements under San Luis Obispo High School because of this kind of urgent situation that we're in and a need to make an adjustment where there was consistency across the board. We do need to change Slow High's credit requirements there just for this 2021 school year in order to adjust them moving from the trimester to semester system. So I would appreciate bringing this back for a second reading as well.
Okay, and again, I'll bring this back to the public. Is there anyone from the public who would like to address us on this issue? Seeing no one, I'll bring it back to the board. Is there any board comment or bring it back for a second reading? Everybody good with that? Okay, we'll bring this one back for a second reading as well. Thank you very much. Let's move on to our action consent agenda. Please let me know if you'd like to have an item pulled. 10.01, acceptance of donations. 10.02, Measure D, approve notice of completions. 10.03, approval of furniture and equipment requests. 10.04, approval of warrants and payroll. 10.05, approval of certificated and classified personnel items. I'd like that pulled. And 10.06, approval of purchase orders and CalCard purchases. Okay. Can we have a motion, please? Actually, I'll take it to the public. Is there anyone from the public who would like to address us on the consent agenda? Seeing no one, I'll bring it back. So would someone please make a motion for items 10.01, 2, 3, 4, and 6? That would be items 10.01 to 10.04 and 10.06. Okay, we have a motion by Dr. Eisendrath. Let's see, we have a motion by Dr. Eisendrath Rogers, a second by Mr. Buckman. This is Roger. Yeah, I take that as a yes. Dr. Eisendrath Rogers. Yeah. Mr. Buckman. Yes. Mrs. Dobler-Drew.
Yes.
Mrs. Sheffer.
Yes.
Mrs. Frame. take that as a yes, and I'm a yes. Hold on just a moment while I pull up this item, please. I wanted to pull this item because I wanted to acknowledge some of the teachers who are retiring. I recognize at least 3 names on here. I don't recognize one of them, but it's still worthy of recognizing. Charles Bartlett, Amy Burris, who's been a long-time math teacher. I believe she taught at Laguna. She taught at Los Osos Middle School, and she's finishing her career at Morro Bay High School. She has a stellar reputation as a teacher. I'd like to recognize Lisa Washmuth, who I've known Lisa for a really long time. She's run the Tiny Tigers program at San Luis Obispo High School. She has done the FHA Hero program, where she's had some just phenomenal student design, fashion design. She's worked with the culinary stuff. I mean, Lisa has really done a lot, and I'd like to recognize Lisa Washmuth. And then William Walters. William and I have worked together, oh my gosh, for 25 years at least, and possibly we worked together probably for 25 years. Our kids were in Little League together. William has been a stellar special educator. He has worked with our most needy students. He has a heart as big as gold, and he will be truly missed. And so I just want to acknowledge all of the retirees and thank them for their service. So I'd like to make a motion to approve item number 10.05. And that's a motion by me and a second by Dr. Eisendrath Rogers. Just get this. I'm going to be a yes. Dr. Eisendrath Rogers? Mr. Buckman? Ms. Dobler Drew?
Yes.
Mrs. Roger?
Yes.
Mrs. Frame? And Mrs. Sheffer? Yes. Okay. Get back to this. And so item number 11.02 is advanced agenda. I'm not seeing anyone. Item 12.01, reports by board members. Well, I'd just like to say that last week I visited Del Mar Elementary School and was able to get some time there with Mrs. Gould and the staff there. And, that's a school that's close to my heart again. My wife taught there for a number of years. Really doing some phenomenal stuff there. And then today I'd like to acknowledge Mr. Dowler taking us on a tour, Ms. Dobler Drew, as well as Ms. Sheffer and I, being able to go to Pacific Beach and just be reminded of the phenomenal work that they're doing at Pacific Beach. So thanks to everybody for doing that. Is there anyone else who'd like to add anything? Yes, Ms. Frame.
Opportunity to be welcomed at San Luis High School and also Morro Bay High School for construction tours and seeing how they're prepping sites. And then I was also able to go to Monarch Grove and see some learning pods. And so I appreciate during these busy times, staff is very welcoming and taking us on tours. So I really appreciate that opportunity for us to be able to see what's happening on the schools. And I just need to be reminded to do my health screening. So.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Okay, so I'm sorry, what? Oh, Ms. Dobler Drew, I'm sorry.
That's all right. I just wanted to say that the principals and the teachers are coming up with very good configurations of desks to meet the needs of the social distancing, as well as being able to move around the room. And we saw a number of different configurations that work very well. And I think they're doing a great job with making the best of a not great situation. So It was very impressive. I enjoyed the tours very much.
Okay, thank you. And Mrs. Roger, did you have your hand up?
Only to bring your attention, call your attention to the fact that Mrs. Dobler Drew was trying to had a comment.
Oh,
Thank
thank you.
Thank you.
So if there's nothing else, we'll adjourn this meeting, and our next meeting, I believe, is next Thursday for a study session at 9 o'clock. Then we will meet the following Tuesday night. So our next meeting after that would be Tuesday night, the 16th, here, or in person, and of course Zoom for those who do not wish to be here or cannot be here. And then we'll also have 3 meetings in March. So our final meeting in March will be Tuesday night, December 30th. So thank you all for your attention, and have a great night. Stay well.
Thank you. Bye.